Terminus was one of my favorite speedruns across zombies as a whole, and Treyarch have just repeatedly made it worse and worse and worse with each update. And on top of that, I think launch BO6 was the best state the game has been in. I think every single update as a whole for the entirety of zombies has completely ruined the game more and more.
Interesting. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. There's also a lot of people here at this wonderful round table that we have established. So I think what we're going to do is run of show is going to be intros for the next 60 seconds. Then we're going to jump into a little bit of a timeline of the story so far with Black Ops 6 and how it was at launch and what state it was in then, and then how patches to the game affected not only the general player's experience, but also specifically speedrunners' experiences through the months. And then we'll get to the present day and what we feel like Treyarch needs to do to rebuild community sentiment and make sure that the rest of the year goes as smoothly as possible. And it should be interesting because I'm sure we'll all have some conflicting ideas on this, but we'll start with intros. So let's just go round the table, the metaphysical table that is not actually here just yet. So yeah, Jack, you started us off there. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Freckleston, or Jack. I've been speedrunning zombies for, God, it's about 4 years now, I think. It's been a while now. You probably know me from like Black Ops 3, Shadows of Evil and all that. Maybe you know me from Black Ops 6 with its launch, I don't know.
Me? Okay, perfect. I'm at 234. I've been speedrunning since about 2020. I've been making content since 2018. Most of y'all probably know me from BO3 Origins. That's where I made my landmark, that in Grok Roving and Super Easter Egg. So yeah, happy to be here.
I'm Kingman. I've been speedrunning since like 2018. I had like a 3-year hiatus from like 2021 to 2024. I've come back with BO6, and most of you probably know me from like before 2021, before Vanguard came out, when I kind of quit. But I'm back now playing BO6, and like I never left.
I'm Smartguy. I'm the old fart here. Yeah, I don't know. You know me maybe from Twitch. I've done a little of everything. Yeah.
First in the world 9.
True. Yeah.
There you go. Do you have any other firsts, or was it just that one?
I have 9 Voyage, Zombies in Spaceland, and Shadow Throne.
Oh hell yeah!
Oh wow!
So I have one from each studio at least. So
don't let him get one more. He'll Thanos us out of it.
Yeah,
it's a dangerous man. All right, over to you, Scrap.
I'm Scrappy. Of course, me and Jack also have a first on Forsaken.
Yeah, I've got 2, man.
I know you have another one, but I have one with you. When everyone was mad that we were talking over the ending cutscene.
Yeah, I think that was more so kooky, just like about some nonsense half the time.
Yep. Yeah, I've been speedrunning official zombies since Cold War with D Machine. I did a little like unofficial custom maps back in like 2017, 2018 on BO3, and mostly I played. I've also had my time with Shadows, and then a lot of BO4.
And I'm Milo, and my speedrunning career started in October 2024.
Bang.
And it ended in October 2024. So I made it about a week, but we did a week, so that's progress. We won't go through my first in the world. So I feel like
you got some solid times though. On Liberty.
They weren't too bad. Yeah.
Like the Terminus maybe struggled a little bit.
I mean,
honestly, I really think it's probably a good place for us to actually kick this off here in terms of the timeline of things. So let's launch into that now. Launch for this game really was, in my view, one of the most positive zombies community sentiments we've ever had for a zombies launch at the time of the launch. Obviously, in hindsight, we're like, oh, we love Shadows now, but we didn't at the time. Transit, hated it at the time. Like, there's a theme here, right? But I don't know about you guys, but for me at least, Black Ops 6 at launch, I feel like the community was just like, this slaps. Like, this is actually really good. Do you guys all feel like we're all on the same page there?
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Like BO3 is like, there's aliens and zombies? No. Like, what is this? And then we have a remake, which was cool to see at the time. Like, we haven't had any before that other than BO1 with Moon. But it was cool at the time. BO4, it couldn't work half the time. Like, we needed to cheat an Easter egg to do around 150 to get a cutscene. Yeah.
Exactly. So
I think Cold War was good, but like it was knocked just a little more
I think Cold War was still kind of positive, but it wasn't on the same level as what of what BO6 is. Like, I don't even think it's close, to be honest. I think BO6 is
the
so
gameplay is
above
a lot-
everything else.
It's all as smooth in Cold War.
Yeah.
So a very strong start, like, and they have to be given credit for that. 100%.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Yeah.
And strong enough to the point that like people like me were like, yeah, I'll give the speedruns a go because it looks fun. And I think a lot of general players also felt the same way, and they were also doing their first ever speedruns. Like the number of comments I had this year being like, oh, I'm going for the speedrun Dark Ops. Like, do you have any tips or something? That alone, just the fact that people knew that a speedrun was a thing you could do in the game as a form of gameplay expression is super different to every previous Zombies year we've ever had. That's never been in the language of being a Zombies fan in general. It's been a niche thing, but not the general thing. So that was amazing. October 24th, game's in a pretty good place. It's got some problems, but those problems are minuscule relative to the much larger enjoyment that everybody's having. A couple of weeks go by, and we get to November 14th. So we're 3 weeks in, and one of them sort of first really major patches comes into the game here, where they take one of the strategies that the Liberty Falls speedrunning community has been using since like day 2, and they just completely remove it from the game, and they don't, if I recall correctly, they don't mention it in patch notes. It's just gone. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So who would be best here? Which of you has the most Liberty playtime, maybe, to give a little bit of a rundown on how that went down?
I think it's probably Jack or Scrappy.
I have a lot of playtime on the map, but I have never
maybe not
speedrun
speedrunning.
these
Okay, so probably you. Probably Jack or
I've done
Matt
quite a
on this
bit,
one.
so like
Honestly, you're probably the most
Oh.
experienced. I didn't play it loads, but I was the first one to sort of start using that in runs. But personally, I didn't really like it as a skip. Like I didn't like that you would just skip half the Easter egg. So it's kind of, I sort of found it fine that they got rid of that. And it was also important to note that at the same time, they didn't get rid of the terminus skips, which sort of sent the message to me that they were completely fine with these, and they thought that these were healthy for the game. Whereas the Liberty Falls one was a bit too much, that was, skipping half the Easter egg.
Before we get ahead to the terminus stuff, let's just make sure, I just want to make sure everyone's got context on what this was. So essentially, the way it worked is that in the Liberty Falls Easter egg, there are 2 canisters, and each of those canisters needs to be used to kill an HVT, and then you do boss fight at the end. And it's kind of one of the only parts of the Liberty Falls Easter egg that I could describe as difficult, I would say. Like, maybe you could say the valve step is like a little fiddly, but there's an HVT that you got to take down. It's a bit fiddly to do. It's annoying, right? But it's a challenge. And the way the skip worked is that basically you could just do one of them and then duplicate your canister, and you wouldn't need to do the other HVT, so you just missed a sort of significant chunk of the challenge of the Easter egg. And the fix basically made it so that you just couldn't duplicate it anymore. And what Jack was just referring to then is that there was a very similar skip that could be done in Terminus, except in Terminus, it was duplicating a canister that was just a battery. You plug it in to the wall, essentially, and the duplication just means that you don't have to carry another battery back and forth to go to another location. So rather than skipping any kind of significant like event happening, you're just skipping some annoying running and swimming around. So similar but different in that vein. But yeah, the Liberty one, they just completely got rid of it, and that's 3 weeks into the game. So for people that are not so familiar with speedrunning, as far as the sort of leaderboards go, I know there's a million leaderboards websites out there. I know over the years there's been notorious discourse about which leaderboard site is the one that people want to use, or they like this one, they don't like this one, etc. Let's not get into that today, but just for the purpose of understanding the kind of flow here, when a patch like that comes out, what does it like? How does it impact the speedrun community? Like, how do things sort of move forward from that point?
Well, the first impressions are everything. It creates a precedent. It's like you create this. It's like DLC ones in general. It's like a DLC, the first map that comes out, it creates a precedent for it. It's like, all right, this is kind of like the tone of the story we're going with, the maps, the depth of the maps. It sets things up in a way. It's like, this is kind of how it's going to go for the rest of the DLC season. So like, that goes down to patch notes too.
did you think that as soon as that got patched, then you're like, oh, okay, they're gonna like patch every single skip, but they're just gonna do it late? Like, was it sort of unclear?
No,
It was-
I definitely not. The way that they only did the canister dupe on Liberty Falls, which I think a lot of people perceive to be quite overpowered because you do just skip half the Easter egg. Whereas like the wire dupe on Terminus, it's just you're skipping a journey back to the boat, and it's just maybe a bit tedious. It's not really that bad. So I think that sort of set the precedent that Treyarch were not just going to aimlessly patch everything out and just be like, okay, this is a bit much, we're just going to get rid of this because it's a bit broken. Even casual players were all just doing this skip to make things easier.
It's also not hard to do at all.
Yeah, it's not hard. It's simple. You just interact and drop it at the same time. It's dead simple.
Was there a chance on the Liberty one for a soft lock too?
If you did it wrong, like you had to do it a specific way. But yeah, there was videos out there telling you how to do it exactly, so people were just following that. But yeah, when these patches come out, the leaderboards just get wiped because these are big skips, these are big time saves. You can't match old speedruns. So the leaderboards just basically get invalidated pretty much. Everything that people have worked for in the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in some cases, I don't know, a month or something, that's all just sort of invalidated, and that's quite demotivating to the players. If it happens once, it's sort of like, all right, happens again, it's a bit... happens again, and you really start coming away from it, I think. It's so demotivating.
I think it's kind of expected, like the first few weeks after, which is usually why some websites will not put up boards immediately.
Right.
To wait to see the patches.
Okay. And then they sort of assume, all right, we're 3 weeks in now, it's not going to change materially anymore, so we can just sort of let the boards run from there. And then a patch like this comes out after 3 weeks, and it's like, well, hold on. Wait a second. You thought too soon.
Right.
So that was November 14th. A further 3 weeks go by, and Citadel comes out. And that's crazy to say that, like, it was sort of weirdly symmetrical there. But yeah, the 3 weeks go by again. Citadel comes out December 6th. And that is when they decided to patch the Terminus canister duplication.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of you guys have been running Terminus a lot. So, like, what were first impressions for all of you going into seeing that patch that day when, like, we're meant to be like, woo, Citadel, and then it's like, oh, hold on, they've actually made a really annoying change on Terminus.
I don't think we found out they patched the wire until like a couple days after, right? Because we were just so caught on
I swear we do the same day. I thought we did.
I don't remember.
I think some people probably tried it.
Yeah, I think people immediately hopped on and just went, oh, let's go see if this is patched, because there's that sort of fear every time there's a patch. It's like, oh god, they might get rid of this. It's like in the last patch, we were worried they're going to get rid of a skip on Citadel, which they didn't. But like, it's that fear, you know what I mean? You immediately go check. So like, Citadel comes out and we're sort of, it's exciting. We have a new map. It's cool. We have 4 swords, elemental swords. It's cool. New map to go for play. And then we start getting these messages like, oh, Terminus, that's been run for the last month by everyone. The times on the leaderboards are all super, super close. It's super competitive. People are really grinding down the times, some really good times. That's all invalidated now because we've just patched the canister dupe on there. And it's sort of like, oh, okay. That leaves
I want to add context to those. I want to add context to those times. So before the patch was out, the times were 1 second off. I had 21:26.2. Matt had a 21:26.8, I think it was.
Yeah, something.
And then Jack had a 21:27, and that was before patch.
It was that close.
That close.
Yeah. I did not know that. What the?
Yeah, and then during this, I'm not sure if Jack did it after, but there was a tournament on Speedrun.com where it was like a $500 gauntlet. Whoever got the fastest time.
Oh yeah.
And then so then it was during that, and all the times were again 1 second off. Not sure if Jack got his 27 after it. I know Matt and I both got our 21s.
It was around during it, yeah.
It was around the time. Yeah.
So that narrow a gap, and you guys are like grinding the game every day to try and be first, right? Like this is like this is something that you're putting a lot of game time into.
Well, let's say it was also fun to do. It Well,
was
yeah,
really fun, too.
honestly, Smartguy was. I mean, my computer was just dying at the time, so
Yeah,
I
you're
would
still
have
having
loved,
issues.
I would have loved to play 10 hours a day. Honestly, 8-10 hours a day. Smartguy was playing. I'd probably say that like.
Yeah,
you
it was
know,
about 8 hours a day. I think I'd put in.
Yeah, and I would have happily done that because it was just fun, and I could stream and I could play, and it was really fun to grind, and like and I just didn't feel that after the patch. I don't know. It was just sour. It felt so sour.
I mean, if you're putting in 8 hours a day, and then to just have all of the work that you've done for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks just disappear, like it's got to be frustrating. Not only because all your work is gone, but also because after it wasn't patched alongside the original canister dupe, I saw a lot of speedrunners being like, well, they didn't patch it here and they've not commented on it, so therefore we think that they're just going to leave it, and like this is their implicit kind of green light that it's fine for us to keep doing. And so then to have that changed 3 weeks later, like had they been like, we're changing, also had they put the original canister dupe in the patch notes, but if in the patch they'd also said we're thinking about doing the terminus one as well, it's just going to come in a couple of weeks, at least then the players could have just chosen not to do the dupe and would have been able to maintain their times on the leaderboards, or at least I assume that would have been possible. But they didn't kind of give that courtesy to the player base. They didn't mention it in the Trello. There was no awareness. And so it kind of like created a problem that just didn't need to happen as far as I'm concerned.
I want to say, I think it gets even worse when you look at how Citadel launched.
Okay.
Because, like, I love Citadel, but there were honestly a lot of bugs in that map.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And it's like they're still fixing bugs from when the game launched.
Yeah.
And they're releasing a new map that is also buggy.
Right. So let's talk about that now. So Citadel came out on the 6th. It straight away was really problematic because of all those bugs, like you've just said. And one of the first things that happened is that people really jumped into using the drill. And drill strat lasted about a week or so. What was was one of you guys, were you the originator of the drill strat? Where did that
was me.
Okay, talk to me. What was that sort of process like for, were you just like, I know that something's going to be OP. I know this map's broken. I'm going to find it.
Yeah, it's because melee weapons hit really hard in this game. And the boss has a damage cap of like, it's like 17,000 like and some change.
Yep.
And melee weapons can hit that pretty quickly, and they're balanced around the fact that they can only hit one zombie. And in this case, you only care about that. And in the Jill's case, it's even crazier because like a day or two before they nerfed it, they buffed the attack speed of all the melee weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was even faster.
Yeah.
It was like a
so the
10-15% increase.
Yeah, it was crazy strong.
Yeah.
But I looked at that, and to be honest, I was like, if this is how it's gonna be, if like swords are decent, they're not like crazy OP by any means, but like they're decent, they scale with round, kind of feels like in the vibe of the map, like it's a map based on melee weapons, using a melee weapon to take down the boss. Cool. I sort of thought, if they left it like that, I wouldn't have been too mad. I would have been like, yeah, fair enough, fine. But then they did nerf it on December 11th. So that was the week after the map came out. And alongside that, they nerfed the swords. And so that caused its own controversy.
Yeah.
Because
Also, the magnitude of the nerf, it's like 20 times less damage.
Yeah. Wasn't it? It was like doing what, 900 damage per hit?
900 from 17,000.
931 damage it was doing compared to 17,000.
Yeah.
From one day to another. And I think that was the issue is that when they nerfed all the melees, and so now you had like in a melee map, you had no way to kill the boss with a melee. And so that was the issue, is it wasn't that they patched it. I think the drill was way too overpowered because they were starting to two-phase it, which I think was maybe a bit overboard for them. But I think once like the drill was out, they're like, okay, let's use the swords. Can't use the swords because they're doing 900 damage. It's like now we have to find these other creative ways using the GPMG, hand cannon, but it should still come back to the swords because it's a melee based map.
Right.
And,
So that,
and they reverted that, thank God, which is great.
yeah, that then caused a lot of community conversation. They reverted it the next day. They came back and they said, okay, we've heard what you're saying, but they were also sort of like, guys, you're like complaining a lot here. Just look at the Trello. Like, we're putting stuff on the Trello. Just like, stop giving us flack. It's on the Trello. And then we all looked at the Trello, and the Trello hadn't been updated for a month. And it was like, you could be doing better here, guys. So that happened. And then we called that out, obviously, as a community. We were like, well, the Trello's not got anything on it. So what are we meant to be looking at? Thankfully, they then did hear us based on that feedback and start updating it again. But the Christmas period then began, right? Where we went from the December 12th sort of patches there through Christmas, through New Year's, all the way to January 3rd. And in that time, there were a few things added to the Trello, but it wasn't a huge amount of stuff. And it certainly wasn't an exhaustive list of stuff. It wasn't every single change that is in the January 3rd patch. It's not every single thing that's broken in the game to this day. It was a handful, but still progress there. So that was good. But then January 3rd comes out and a new change is made to Terminus of all maps, which at this point has been out for, 2.5 months.
About 9 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been out for 9 weeks and it's being changed. And this is also then 3 more weeks after the original nerfs to the canister dupe on Terminus. So speedrun leaderboards are being reset again. Yeah. So it's like, okay, this is starting to get excessive now. Like this is just weird.
That's the most frustrating one for me. Like for quite a few reasons, I think, because it's not only the time frame of them not patching it and then just seemingly randomly patching it. It's at the same time, like Citadel had so many issues. It still does have issues. They fixed some of them. And they seemingly, it feels like they targeted removing insignificant skips. I would call it insignificant because not many people really do it. Like, maybe like less than 1% of players will do it. Because people
also that lockdown,
like
way less than that.
Well.
Yeah,
that lockdown was like nothing.
Yeah, it's not hard. It doesn't really, it's not hard. It doesn't really like save loads of time for an average player. And they seemingly targeted getting rid of that out of the game instead of fixing a lot of the other issues, like the boss on Citadel just AFKing and you can't kill him. He's just immune. The orb will get stuck in the sky. You can go through so many bugs on Citadel. And they were all still in the game. And that's like, that was frustrating. That was so frustrating.
So
it was the first like speedrun patch or thing they put in a patch note, and it was like the most negative thing ever. Because we used to find everything on our own, and the first one they do is just like the biggest, FU basically to us. Yeah,
to finally get some communication directly to speedrunners, and for the communication to be, we're making your life worse.
Basically.
Okay.
And even just the context of the step too. You're in there for 60 to 90 seconds after a cutscene. If it's your first time playing Easter egg, right? You're probably gonna watch the cutscene, like what's the story behind it, whatever. And then you do a lockdown, that's a minute. And then you go do the wires. We'll get to that in a little bit, but you do the wires, you gotta go back and forth with the wires, and then there's quotes you gotta play. You gotta wait for those. It's so much weighing around with the shock charge. You make that a little bit easier. It saves you a couple minutes. And
I also assume most people would be fine if they patched it in like the Liberty canister patch.
That's the thing. It's the time.
The issue is
frame.
not they patch it.
It's the time frame. Like you can't just like patch one thing and then not patch something else that's extremely similar to that. Leave out the other skips in the map just to patch them 4 weeks later, seemingly randomly, and it's like
and not communicate in the interim to say that is your intent. I think that's the crucial missing piece there.
It feels frustrating because we don't actually know what they want. You know what I mean? Like it seems like we're getting one message, and then it seems like they just completely flip on that and go, "Oh no, we're just going to do this now. We're going to patch this out." It's like it's just frustrating that it's not all at once. Because then we're just being messed around.
So alongside that, I think something that, I mean, it prompted the creation of this roundtable was that it felt like Treyarch was kind of weirdly going back on its word a little bit of some of the messaging pre-launch and stuff that I'd been told by Treyarch devs myself, of them saying, like, we want to take the hardcore community more seriously this year. Like, we want to do stuff for you guys. In Cold War, we sort of over-indexed a bit on the noobs. This year, we want to make sure that there's stuff for you guys too. And it's like, okay, great, let's see it. And some of those things, like some of the things that they've done with high rounds, for example, I think are positive.
I think they did it well.
That's great.
They did high rounds
Whereas in speedrunning, I don't think that there's been a single change until today, which we'll get onto in just a second. I don't think there's been a single thing that has been pro speedrunners. But am I wrong? Is there anything I'm forgetting, or is it like, is that fair?
No, they just packed everything we find, which sucks.
Yeah, that might just be the case. I'm trying to think of something good.
As QA, and that is the extent of it. I don't think there's like, I guess they patched in the in-game timer, so that is pro speedrunning. So I want to sort of give them credit there. That is at least a good thing to have in the game. So that happened January 3rd, removal of the shock charge skip. And then we get to January 9th, which is today. And we were planning to record this without these changes that we're about to discuss. So they got them in the nick of time. It was great timing. Today, Treyarch announced that they are reverting a bunch of the anti-fun nerfs that they introduced January 3rd. And they are also bringing the Terminus skip back, which is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the first time in history they've ever done that?
Yeah.
I think so.
Because they were patching things out through Cold War and everything. Even, like, I dare say BO4, but I don't know. But definitely Cold War, they patch everything out. This is the first time that they have not just added something back, but sort of acknowledged and gone, yeah, we still want you guys to have fun as well. We actually recognize you as a community in zombies, and, you know, we're gonna help you. We're gonna acknowledge you. We're gonna make sure that you're a part of it as well.
They said speedrun trick. Keyword was speedrun. They've never said that before on anything. It's more just like exploit, glitch, issue. The big word was issue. I saw last week. So now, like, they're actually acknowledging it as a speedrun trick, and like they've never acknowledged that in Cold War. It's like, you know, kind of growing in the community, but it's not like a mainstream thing. Them mentioning it now proves speedrunning in zombies is now like a mainstream thing in the community.
It's pretty big.
And Treyarch is aware of it now. Like, they were probably aware of it before, but not now. Like, they're acknowledging it, which is the big thing.
It's essential too, because the launch, Dark Ops and stuff, pushing people into that community was so positive, and it's just so antithetical to their own efforts to be like, well, we'll push them over there, and then when they're over there, screw them. It's like, guys, what? Like, please. So great to have the acknowledgement in the patch today, even if they weren't going to bring it back, even if they were just saying, we're hearing the speedrun community, that would still have been progress. But it was actually a double whammy where they acknowledged that speedrunners are out there. They acknowledged that it was a trick, not an exploit, not a problem. Like, you don't need to use that sort of loaded language. And they're actually making the reversion sometime soon. We don't know exactly when it's going to be, but sometime soon. So,
and I think
are we all happy with that?
Very.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Very.
I just wanted to check if there's anyone that was like, actually, no. So, all right. So far, the roundtable is in agreement.
Well, it makes me wonder, just I guess side note, but based off of that, for future maps and everything, if this same thing comes up again, it's like, what are they going to do now? Like, are we going to have the consistency of, okay, they're going to make it into an actual trick that's implemented, or what's going to be the standard now going forward from this, I guess, to play?
I think the context matters.
This could just be like entire like fantastical thinking, but it's like, I hope like there's some sort of like consultation with Shark. I know it's probably tough with like legality, you know, secret stuff and whatnot, but like even just like a yes or no, like, does this break the game? Is this a problem? Yes or no? Like, just that much could go a long way, I think.
I think this sets the precedent that page skip will stay in the game.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So context on that, just to make sure that everyone's understanding it. In Citadel, there is a pretty big skip. It's actually bigger, I would say, than both the Liberty and Terminus. All the skips that were possible there. I think that this is the biggest of them all, where essentially, instead of having to pick up all the pages, go down into the water room, punch the wall, do the thing with getting the codes from the tavern, coming back, putting them in the wall, and then doing your traps, you can just look at what the symbols are on the pages, and you using your knowledge of where they spawn in on the map in the first place, you can just go and do the traps straight away. So it saves you all of the tavern codes, punching, all that stuff, which is probably like a solid 5 minutes of game time. Is that
it's
fair?
pretty
Like,
time
something like that?
consuming. I disagree. It's bigger
Yeah.
than like the Liberty one was. You skipped half the egg. You know what I mean?
Just like relative to how short Liberty is, like
yeah.
that's a
Well,
bigger
it's the size of the
percentage
egg.
probably.
But it is
now
pretty
that
time
Liberty's
consuming.
literally a sub-8. It's a sub-8 Easter egg. So
It's a pretty intricate step as well, though, isn't it? With the whole all the symbols that you've got to collect and remember them, and you've got the changing wall. It's a pretty intricate step that you're skipping, but it's not it's not a glitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just sort of the way that they have made it means that the pages spawn in a consistent order with the traps.
Yeah.
And it feels
So
good
it's
to be
not a glitch,
rewarded. You know.
I think what they could have done is like you put in the code, then you get the pages. Now you see them. Like before that step, they could have just had all the traps the same, just like the full circles. Like none of them are there. But then when you put those pages in after inputting the Macchiato wall code, then they would, turn to like the symbols they're based off of. And then you have
Or
to
like, what if it was
order.
just like the traps are red before you're on that step, and then they go green when you're on that step, and then they go back to red or something. Like if it was really essential to them, they could have just done that from the jump. I think that would have been fun. But yeah, just to continue from your point. So that skip is still there to date.
Yes.
And now we have this communication January 9th about them making a reversion in favor of the speedrunners. Maybe that means that they're going to keep that Citadel skip. Do any of you guys think that it's gonna go? Do you anyone in that camp?
I'd say no anymore after
before
this.
today. Yeah.
Before today, I was
I
Don't get my
never-
hopes up too much.
yeah, but
I
I
never
think
thought it
like
would go.
I think it sets a good precedent for us where it's like, hey, they're rewarding us actually for finding this, and now we can use it. And then I think after the today game, I have a lot more confidence that it's just going to stay. And then hopefully for future maps and stuff we find, they're just like, okay, let's let the 1% use that. No, like when you're guys, there's a link, it's not going to be there, so it's not a huge deal. No one's going to be using it.
Do
And I think
any of
that's-
you? Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, man.
All right. Do any of you think it should be patched though? Like the
No.
wall skip?
Oh no, I don't think
Do
it
you know-
should.
No.
Not, no.
I just thought they
It's
would.
clearly different because it's not actually a glitch. Like it's a
Yeah.
coding issue, but it's not a coding issue because someone did something wrong. They just
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
They just didn't think about it.
Okay, I'm different, man. I think it would be cool if they got rid of it, and like you actually had to go and do that step. But that's just me.
That'd be brutal.
You monster!
I think it's a cool step though. I don't know. I think
it
skipping
forces
that is-
the Easter egg to be more linear.
Yes. Yeah. It
Yeah,
does. If you get rid of the wall, if you get rid of the page skip, then yeah, it becomes more linear because you have to go to spawn and get the symbols. But I think it would be cool to get rid of it. I don't know. I don't want them to get rid of it. Just before I say I don't want them to, but I think it would be cool to see what it is without it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to extend your question there, because you were anti-Liberty dupe.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
You were happy for that to go.
Yeah.
Was anyone here really in favor of the Liberty dupe?
Oh, I loved it. Like you just skip the entire step. Like it's what 2.5 minutes. I think of time save doing the same
This
thing
is a
over
man
and
that
over
only
again.
cares about speed.
I'm glad they patched it.
Yeah, I just think
Kingman, would
context
you-
matters.
sorry, Mac. Just a quick question, then I'll let you go. Kingman, would you cut off a finger if it meant that you got world record every single time you played a map from here on out for the rest of your life?
Okay, well, it depends. What finger are we talking about
Colt.
here?
Any finger.
I don't know. I like my fingers, man.
Shaking his hand like, yeah, I don't love you that much, Pinky. Like, you can go.
I mean, you know, Pinky on the mouse hand, like, he's
Yeah,
not
I don't
doing
need that.
anything.
I don't need that.
Yeah, we're good.
When in doubt, Pinky out. Okay.
I've got one
That's what I'm
WR
saying.
movement.
Okay, as you were saying, Max, sorry.
Or, hang on. Or if you're an AI image on
Wait,
COD, maybe you have
we gotta
another
let him
one.
go. We
Maybe
gotta,
you've got
I've
another one.
interrupted him too many times. You go, Mac. You go.
I was just saying, like, I think with all the skips, like, context matters. Like, with the Liberty one, we're skipping half the egg, half the story that, you know, Treyarch worked hard to implement. And then, like, something with, like, Determinist Shock Charge, you're just skipping a shaky lockdown for 60 seconds. And I think that's kind of where the separation is. Like, oh, like, they're skipping half the egg we made. Oh, no, they're just skipping 30 seconds of a stupid lockdown. I think that's the separation that, like, if there are skips like that, I don't mind them being patched because when as a speedrunner, I don't mind doing a majority of the egg. It's just little stuff like that where it's like I don't want to be sitting in a lockdown shooting my GS at my feet for 40 seconds and then leaving. That doesn't add to my gameplay experience at all.
So a question then, because Mac, you've got a lot of Origins experience, right?
Yes.
Is there anything in the Origins run that you think is is there any sort of similar thing to this where like you're skipping a big chunk of that egg, or during the quest are you basically doing all of the steps?
Well, so we now found out about 2 years ago with self-medication, you can essentially replicate the BO2 fire staff glitch, where you can skip AFD completely, and you don't have to put those the staffs in the robots. And that one I'm okay with because it's just at that point it's just RNG. You're just at that point I'm waiting for robots. I'm waiting for 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3.
Yeah, so you're preventing RNG from
right, essentially
some RNG from entering the run there.
Yeah, and I think it helps the speedrun at least flow a lot better. Instead of me just sitting at the top waiting for my staff like this, and let me go back down and get wind or ice or lightning or whatever.
Right.
And I think like that makes the run fun because I'm taking out probably the most boring part of Origins, in my opinion.
It made finishing runs awful, didn't it? Like when you had to put every staff in the Robux, it's like if you wanted world record, you needed to win like a 1 in 3, then a 1 in 2, then another 1 in 2, and then you had another 1 in 3 with Rainfire, and it's like now it's just you skip all of that and you just need 1 in 3 with Rainfire. And so like, you can finish runs so much easier now.
We had a strat, but obviously it would have to change depending on what robot would come in, and then it'd blow up everything, and it just would make it just more frustrating than anything. And the fact that we found out self-medication can duplicate staffs, and making sure we can skip that was one of the best things in speedrunning ever, at least for me. I know I'm biased, but it was amazing.
It was good. Yeah, it was good.
It was so good.
What I'm hearing is that if a skip is skipping a meaningful step, like if it's skipping something that from a design perspective, you can tell it's like they've really poured some energy into trying to make this cool. Like if it was skipping a fight with a boss or like something like that, then that might be a bit too far. But if it's basically just shaving the sharp edges off the run and meaning the frustration is being removed rather than like potential fun that could be part of the run, that's maybe when it's like, okay, it's a sharp edge, we'll sort of take that out. Are there any other examples from all the other speedrunning that you guys have collectively done where you think that there is a case where there's a skip that goes too far and it's like, realistically, this would be a more interesting map if this skip didn't exist?
I mean, I can't think of much.
Yeah, I mean, Jack's played the most maps out of all of us. So.
There was something in Dead of the Night that got patched years ago, but that was before you even touched it, I think.
Well, I only started playing BO4 in like mid 2021.
Yeah.
I only started speedrunning zombies in 2021. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't think so.
Something to mull over then.
So.
Yeah.
But it adds to that conversation of like, what. It's sort of like what skips and what glitches that are used in speedruns do you think are healthy for the game? Which I have my opinions on lots of different ones.
Matt, you got your you thought of one?
In Alpha Omega, you could skip Rushmore and a bunch of his dialogue for a bunch of things.
Oh, you can do that. Yeah, you can. That's good though.
Can you still do it?
You can skip so many quotes. Yeah. But they're like skill based. They're like skill based.
But then they got rid of it.
It's timing. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to time everything, and like it's pretty. You got to be quick with stuff.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a sec, because there's been various quote skips, and I know, Scrap, you've been experimenting with this a bit on Citadel as well. Maybe experimenting against your will, maybe because it's the game being weird half the time. But there's quote skips. I mean, this is a thing that I think goes back quite a long way in zombies and just sort of speedrunning in general. If a character is yapping on about something, and you just have to stand there and wait for 45 seconds, finding a way to just interrupt them or to skip it entirely is always going to be a good thing, save you some time, right? I think the best examples of when those things happen are when it's a skip that if you know how to do it, you can do it and you can skip past it. But if you don't know how to do it, you would never accidentally do it. And therefore you would never have the like generic fans impression of an Easter egg be ruined by like not hearing the dialogue, right? Yeah. That's the sweet spot where it's like, brilliant. Okay, the speedrunners have their trick. They can do their trick. Everyone else just gets the normal experience. That's fine.
I think GK is basically a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Okay, can you explain how it works with GK for me, Scrap?
You can skip not every quote, but a lot of story quotes. Most of the traps in the map play a quote that will skip story quotes.
So do they interrupt a quote if it's happening? So you activate a trap? Is that how it works?
It can't interrupt it, but there's like a period before a quote starts that it waits to start.
Okay.
And if you activate a quote in that time, then it will skip it.
It's a small window.
They're half a second or less windows that you can skip them.
Yeah.
Right.
You gotta be precise.
So it's really hard to accidentally do it. And some of them are hard to do purposely if you're not experienced with it yet.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds like an ideal scenario, really.
Yeah.
So then we got to Terminus, and I remember watching some of you guys speedrun Terminus initially, and I was speedrunning, sort of trying to follow along, like keep up with your runs. And one day I saw, I think it was you, Jack, on stream, where you just accidentally skipped some stuff, or were you trying to do it?
I did it in a run. No, I did it in a run accidentally, and then I was like, I just skipped so many quotes. I was like, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And then obviously the next day we were sort of like looking into it and realized how we did it. But yeah, I just sort of accidentally found it. And I was able to skip a lot of the quotes from when you turn on the AI SAM after you've built the wires for the first time. You could skip a lot of those quotes and get the hacking device quicker.
Yeah. So the context in that part of the egg is that you've just done the wire. You basically have to run back up and meet Sam there. And she does yap for like
it's a long
over
time.
A minute. Yeah. And then eventually the hacker device just plops out of the little thing and you can grab it and go and continue. I'm assuming if you do the quote skip, does the device just come out straight away pretty much?
No. So there's like, imagine it's like two sets of quotes. You have the original, I guess like
story, and then it's like, okay, now here's the hacker.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like,
the hacker.
Oh, I'm Sam. Oh, how did you? I thought she was dead or whatever. Anyways, I just want to get you off the island. Everyone go and meet at the guard station. And then when you get there, she's like, okay, I've told Peck to build this hacking device. And then he'll be like, all right, let me prepare it. And then he'll give it to you. So you basically skip the first part of the quotes to get to the second part a lot quicker, which the first part is really long. Like it takes a while.
And the way
I can give you some context here if you want.
Yeah, please.
Because obviously I don't know how they did it in BO6 because I don't have the code. But a lot of like BO3 and BO4, they have like groups of quotes that as long as the previous one was successful, they will keep going. But if one of them fails, then none of the rest play.
It doesn't seem
so
like
that's what he's doing
there.
Yeah.
Do you think it works like that in BO6? I don't think that sounds right.
Well, you're skipping to like the first half is like a big group, right?
Right.
And like after a certain point,
there'll be
you can skip a big block of it, right? And then you go to the guard station.
It would skip as soon as I flipped to the bug round.
Yeah.
So that's what caused it, but that was the interrupt, right? So I think what Scrap's saying is that like you've got the block of the go to the guard station, and then you've got the block of the like here's the hacking device, and you were using flipping to the bug round as the interrupt for that first block, and then it was basically skipping to the start of the next block as opposed to skipping like 10% of it and then just starting you here. It was actually just going all the way to the next block.
Yeah.
I want more context. It's the bug round and the Raptor one
The
exfil
exfil.
quote
Yeah,
that
you need
triggers
the
it.
exfil quote. You need
Yeah.
it. Otherwise,
That's the piece.
yeah.
They
Otherwise
might
it
have
doesn't
like a
work.
That
check
overrides
now
it.
for like, okay, you can fail one quote, but if not,
No, I don't
because it
think
does
that's
seem
right.
like
Well,
You don't think?
okay, so
No.
let's just dive into this a bit more because at launch, it was Parasite round starting, which is like whatever the quote is, fetch me their souls type vibe, whatever it says.
Yeah.
And then it was also like exfil's ready, time to get out of here. So it's those two are necessary,
Yeah.
but it's changed, right? Or there's been changes to the quote skip. At
It's
some point?
changed, but
Yeah.
it still works, but differently. You have to wait longer.
Oh,
It's
okay. So it's the
weird.
timing has changed.
Yeah.
It's like less quotes you can skip. Yeah.
Okay, weird.
Well, I think they
Yeah.
changed it accidentally. I don't think they.
Yeah.
I don't think they changed it on purpose.
No,
My
I think it was
assumption is when
yeah.
they changed Sam's voice actor, they did something to the quotes, and it broke it somehow.
Maybe
Because they
it's
never
the-
addressed it in patch notes.
Yeah, maybe her lines changed length very slightly, and that just meant that like
Maybe.
the cadence of where it landed means that the actual
Maybe.
player's actions are landing at a different time. Maybe it's something like that. But so that's Terminus. But then in Citadel, you've also been experiencing some weird quote stuff. And again, this is stuff
Yeah.
that you would want to keep, presumably, right? You would want to keep the skip so long as it's not affecting a general player's experience, which I don't believe it is. But go ahead and explain a little bit more about that.
Well, the quotes in Citadel actively hurt the map because you can't. I mean, if you can't skip them, to my knowledge, maybe you can do the same thing and get like an exfil quote and get a bug round, but you're never in a position to do that.
Yeah.
And to me, like I was trying to play the 2-player speedrun the other day, and after the patch, it's basically made it so Ether Shroud will not work for almost the entire first phase of the boss.
And this is because of quotes.
It's because of quotes.
Right.
Because they take longer to finish because they broke it somehow.
Okay.
And it's like, I don't want to play the 2-player speedrun or any call of speedrun because we're in Shroud in the boss and he's just stomping on us and killing us.
Yeah. So, because I've had a lot of reports from my community about like, hey, Milo, why is he ignoring my Ether Shroud? And I've been like, I don't freaking know.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
Yeah. They broke it so much that it affects you in solo now if you Ether Shroud too quickly.
Right.
Because it used to, like, before the patch, I would never experience it in solo. But now it's like whenever Ravenov stops talking, Ether Shroud will work. And he stops talking much later in solo now.
Right. Okay,
and even longer in co-op.
So there's some weird connections in the code between quote timing and features that are just base features of the game, like using your field upgrade. For some reason, there's some relation there. I suspect the devs also don't know why that's there. Like, I doubt that anyone at Treyarch is like, oh yeah, I coded it that way. Like, it's probably just a weird accidental thing that's happened. So I guess the question is, with something like that, if they don't know what's going on, like if the devs are just like, oh, it's a mystery to me, but it is a fundamental thing. Let's say the speedrun community was using that in Citadel. Let's just say, for example, and it was harming people's experience. What would be the appropriate way for Treyarch to navigate that situation? Because ultimately, it probably needs fixing because it's a bug that a lot of people are experiencing. But if it was being used to advance time, then fixing it would wipe leaderboards. If they can only fix it in 6 months, maybe it takes a long time. Like, what do they do then? Should they re-implement something in a way so that speedrunners still have a skip available? Should they just get rid of it and keep us updated earlier? Like, what do you think would be best?
I think most people will be fine if they take longer to fix it, but they just let us know
in advance.
Yeah. It's the surprise fixes that take forever that are just it never feels good. It just kills your motivation to play.
Yeah, being told beforehand is nice. Like being like, I remember it with when Warzone came out, when it got like integrated with Black Ops 6. It like completely messed with all the movement in the game, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible to play. It felt
Yep.
awful.
It took them like a week and a half to fix it. Like reload didn't work when you're sprinting. Like it just felt incredibly clunky.
I put a tweet out about it, and then Treyarch actually replied to it and were like asking me to show them like, oh, show me you doing this, or whatever. And then they sort of went, okay, this is broken, and then said, we know this is a problem, we're going to fix it. And that felt good because it's like, okay, they're listening.
Yeah.
Which is what it goes back to that point earlier where they're like, we want to listen to the community, we want to help, do what you guys want. And I do feel like they've done that well in some places like that. And then other places where they're sort of not communicating, i.e. older patches where they're patching skips, not telling us or anything, just randomly doing it, and we have to go find out. That's not cool,
I think what was nice about that as well. Yeah, the Terminus movement one was good also because when it happened, like the game felt really sluggish to play. It was not good. But because they'd given you that response, it meant that basically the majority, I think, of people that were speedrunning Terminus just took a few days off. They were just like, I'm just gonna do something else. And, and like I think it was probably quite nice for you, Matt, right? Because like you were given that courtesy by Treyarch to be like, yeah, play something else right now, essentially, while the game is broken, and then you could come back once it was fixed, and it's happy days, right? So it's literally just like it's a level of respect for the player's time that is expressed through communication, which I think is a really big deal, and I don't really know why it's taken so long for Treyarch to be able to put out a blog post like they did today, being like, let's talk to the speedrunning community a little bit here, just for a paragraph. Let's do it. I don't know why that's been so slow to sort of materialize, but fingers crossed it kind of continues.
Yeah, I hope this is now a one-off thing. It's like, oh, we're leaving the game, like that Steam chart. It's just like, oh, like everyone who joined the game in December is gone. It's like, we need to do this or our sales are gonna be affected. So like, I hope this isn't like a one and done thing.
Yeah.
Like even when they're at their peak, like I hope they keep it going. It's just good to gain and maintain player respect and trust.
It felt so good seeing a paragraph in a patch note, just talking about it.
Yeah, massively.
Well, I think. Sorry. I think Scotty wanted to talk about this. I sort of feel like it's sort of felt like this with all the patches and how speedruns and speedrunners have been treated through even Cold War, that Treyarch almost don't want speedruns in their game. That's kind of like the message that we're getting because they're just patching everything out and making it a misery for us. And we're confused by that because speedrunning is really big in the game now. Loads of people watch it. Like the views that it brings in on everyone's channels covering it are massive. You know what I mean? Like it gets a lot of views. It's
all free marketing.
We think it's only a good thing that these speedruns exist and that people enjoy it and that people play it. So we don't understand why it's sort of getting attacked.
Yeah, I mean, I can give some context. It's not going to be fun context, but I can give some context from when I was at Treyarch earlier this last year. So
be a bombshell.
I was at Treyarch, and they were talking about Easter egg completion rewards, right? And they were like, yeah, there's completion rewards for pre-directed. And I was like, very good. And then they were like, there's Easter egg rewards for directed. And I was like, pretty good. And then I was like, what about for like doing it twice or like 3 times or anything like that? And they were like, no. And I was like, wait, no? Like, what do you... And they were like, we're just going to do it for the single completions here. And I was like, no. We can't just like glaze past this. This is a really important thing, right? There is a group of people in the community, speedrunners, who do the Easter eggs like thousands of times. That is one cohort of people. There are also non-speedrunners who do the Easter eggs, let's say, from a handful of times to dozens of times to maybe hundreds of times. Probably just doesn't ever go any higher than that. Just for fun, right? So like there's a lot of people that are doing that. There are some people that just do the Easter egg once and they do it like a campaign mission. They never do it again. I recognize that. But there are a lot of people that like redoing these eggs. And so I was like, if you're talking about hardcore players and you're trying to sort of speak to that community, it would be worth like considering that and designing with that in mind and rewarding those people, etc. And the blank stare that I received to that comment was so like cripplingly painful in my soul because it looked like I was saying something that wasn't just like, oh, we haven't thought about that, but it felt in the moment like they had already made an internal decision that what I was saying was a load of bollocks, and they just didn't want to say it to my face. Yeah. And it was just weird. I was like, this isn't an outlandish request. This is a pretty sort of straightforward thing. And rewarding speedrunners for doing it like one time, right? Like, for example, getting a sub 30 on Liberty, rewarding people for that is so good that I feel like what Treyarch haven't yet introduced into their thinking for zombies is how you kind of take the positive step that they've made with Black Ops 6 or the sort of we seem like we might be going towards and say, how do we then build on that and actually make it kind of continue to resonate with people, continue to keep them playing the game, etc. Because launch was amazing, but like you said at the very start, Jack, we've kind of slipped on a very weird slippery slope downhill as they've added more content, and it hasn't felt like good ways to retain the player have been at the forefront of their design philosophy. It's felt like they had their original progression roadmap, which was very strong, I think, but then as soon as you kind of grinded through those dark ops or whatever, from there on, it's just been patches and patches to make the game a little bit less fun here or there, or LTMs that I don't think anyone's really got a significant amount of playtime in.
I haven't even played any of them. Yeah.
I haven't touched
the Squid Game one. The Squid Game one is horrible. You can just sit on 10 rounds and just exfil.
That was a weird thing. Like, I appreciate that they added in the paragraph of like, oh, we didn't think it'd be like, you know, that easy for like round 10, but I'm like, this feels incredibly out of touch, like since we're like the top 0.001%. But it's like round 10. It's like that's 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, you know, they've got a dark ops for round 100. Like, you know, round 10. Come on.
This is the thing. So. Treyarch, I believe, and I don't know where this data came from in my head, but I'm pretty sure they've said somewhere at some point, and this might have been.
Was it the round 5 average?
Yeah, like
Cold War, I'm pretty sure is when they brought that up.
So yeah, like the average player gets to, I believe it's between like rounds 5 and round 7, and then they die. And that, to hear that as a Zombies fan is like that wounds me in my soul.
Yeah, hear that? You guys stink at zombies.
But it's a crazy thing, but it is true. And when you go into a public match in a previous COD, not so much in Black Ops 6, I think it's a little different now, but in a previous COD, you go into a public match, are your teammates alive on round 9 on Shadows of Evil? No, they're not, right? No. They're on the floor. So like, you can see the evidence of it. It's not like they've just made that up for the sake of it. Yeah. And I think that what's difficult about it now is that I think in Black Ops 6 they have done a lot of stuff to make it better for the newbiest end of the spectrum to be a little bit better at the game. That's my impression. I would say that the average has moved up a little bit is my guess. But from my perspective, it was like, okay, you want the LTM to be easy or whatever, but then you're spinning it as it being a thing so that we don't have to use gobble gums, but like, why is that coming into it? That just feels weird. Like, no one was even talking about gobble gums. Why are you bringing them into the equation? And it feels like when you're making a blog post, like the hardest of the hardcore are reading that blog post. No noobs are reading the blog post. They don't even know the blog post exists. And so to say to this community, oh, we thought that would be too hard for you. Like, we thought round 10 would be too hard. That's why we put it there. Or round 20 would be too hard. It's like, guys, like, you're talking to us. Yeah. Like,
I don't even know why it needs to be limited, though. Like, why is it even limited at all?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It should just be like a modifier on the game that, you know, maybe it makes the game progressively more difficult as you get higher and higher. And you have to, you know, beat your high score, basically. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's about, you know? And that's what Zombies originally was about, is getting the highest round possible.
Yeah, more like arcadey.
Yeah, it's just sort of thrown out the window.
And I think at round 5, when you're in red light, when you move, you lose more points. So I figure like the more rounds you progress, the more points you lose if you move, which, you know, for a high round would make it actually difficult because you need you need points to restock and all that stuff, and now you won't have that. So just like the fact that they made it a round 10 cap was just silly, and it was like a 5-minute game mode.
Thing is, they've got examples of game modes from other zombies games that are like genuinely good. Like I love Gauntlets on VO4.
I'm begging they bring back Gauntlets.
I want them to bring Gauntlets back so bad because they're so fun and they're so interesting because they're all different on every map. Yet we just get a round 10 exfil where you lose points if you move on a couple rounds. You know,
and I feel like now with like all the modern like systems in modern COD, I think Gauntlet will work better than it did in BO4. Because like BO4, you're limited by 4 perks. Like here, you can like it could like in game you like sets a specific augment for you, even though you may have someone else equipped. You might have to like. There's a lot of different things they could do with it. I think that could be really cool.
I know. I'd love a randomizer in this game.
Yeah,
it'd be so fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's I mean, sort of a whole topic unto itself. But
Yeah.
Well, like weirdly, the closest we've ever got to that really being a thing was Vanguard, right?
Yeah. And, 100%.
Like I worry, and I've sort of expressed this in videos a few times over the years. I worry that what Treyarch kind of did internally is they went, well, we've got an interesting idea here. Let's basically beta test it in Vanguard in a really minimal way with like whatever it was, 20. Maybe less than that. I think they were maybe like 18 or something of the, what were they called? Covenants or what?
Covenants.
Yeah,
Covenants.
Yeah. So like there was like 18 or 24 or whatever there were of those at launch. It was very minimal. And so like, yeah, let's just test to see if the community likes that. And then the community was like, well, this absolutely blows for like 50 different reasons. But the idea of the randomization and the sort of RNG potential there could actually be really fun. And so I worry that they've conflated, they say it blows, with the fun idea buried in all the stuff that blows. And I think that I would love to see Treyarch sort of be bold and say, okay, we're going to introduce that in an LTM or something, or a separate playlist or something in Black Ops 6 at some point, and just like give it another crack. Because I think with this skeleton of the wider game, I think it could really work. And I know you do a lot of, you're a roguelike guy, right, Matt? Like you do a lot of those sorts of games.
Even when you guys are talking about Gauntlets, like I feel like I'm the only person that doesn't like Gauntlet because it's the same challenges every single time you play it.
Yeah,
I want those challenges to be randomized every time you go through it. Like maybe round 5, 10, every 5, it's the same challenge or something. But like, I would want random challenges every single time you would go through.
Yeah, I just feel like COD wouldn't do like. I don't think COD could do like weekly updates. Like I think they proved to have MWZ. It's like. They update a weekly mode seasonally, and it was dead on arrival because of that.
But I mean, what if they just like essentially use the trial system, which they've already built, and they just make that each round instead of 90 seconds or whatever, and you already get a random trial from the trials machine. So that could work as just like a spin-off LTM. Just give it us for, I don't care, for 2 weeks randomly in a dead season 4 or whatever it's going to be. But just sort of give it a spin. Let us do the Easter egg during it potentially as well. In fact, definitely that would make it like significantly better. But like, I think if they were playful with their LTMs in that way, it would be a lot more interesting to me than something like Dead Light Green Light, where I'm just like,
it's a corporate mode.
Yeah. Off the jump, I'm like, this feels corporate, and I'm good. Like, no thanks. Obviously, it's off the topic of speedrunning a little bit, but yeah, Treyarch, do it. Get rid of Squid Game. Put in randomized gauntlets. That is what we are apparently all craving. So it sounds like the communication thing, it's an improvement. What we've had today, it's a big improvement. There's a ways to go to see how that changes in the future. I'm curious, what would need to happen? And maybe we can kind of go around the circle, and I'll start randomly. I'll start with you, Matt. Okay. What would you say would be the most important thing for Treyarch to add to the game over the next 9 months or whatever to make speedrunning like more fun here than ever before? Whether it's a quality of life thing or it's like a big thing. And I'm putting Matt on the spot. He's got no time to think. The rest of you get time to think. So get your thinking caps on. Is there anything you have in mind? And if you need time to think, I could sort of just like spitball for a minute. I don't mind doing that.
I'm not even sure. just the consistency of communication. I mean, I know it sounds generic and we're probably going to say the same thing, but like, unless you pick out something specific in the map, like, oh, I really want an item randomizer so I could, go speedrun and it's random every time. You just, I don't know. It's just like, it's hard to sit there and say what's one thing that could improve speedrunning specifically, because every map's different. Every map's going to have something, a different character, just different everything about it. So it's hard to
let me give you an example to get everyone's brains going then.
Okay.
What if, recognizing that every map is different, etc., what if you beat any given map's Easter egg in a designated like speed run time, like the official speed run time of a map, let's say for Liberty, 30 minutes.
I like that.
Let's say Terminus 40 minutes. If you do that, you get
a pack of gobblegums.
A pack of 3 gobbles. Just gobbles.
You could have different tiers, and the higher tier could be a higher chance of an ultra rarity, and then that way Kingman doesn't have to go broke buying any more gobblegums. Yeah.
More gums is good, that's for sure.
Yeah. Hey, they released that $20 pack last week. All right, it's a good deal. Am I gonna buy it? Absolutely not. But
I don't know why gobblegums aren't a reward for completing eggs.
Yeah,
because then you're gonna get casuals even just replaying eggs all the time too.
Yeah.
Right. So with that in mind, does anyone else, maybe this is a more difficult question than I expected, but does anyone else have any ideas they've got for like similar ways to kind of galvanize the speedrun community specifically and just make it better? Like what is missing here?
I want to say the January 3rd patch. It genuinely felt like they just didn't test it.
Okay, so to test patches,
like Void
test
Sheath
patch?
crashes the game with the swords, which is like they changed Void Sheath so because there was a bug with the swords, so you think they would test it and then find out it actually crashes the game. And then like one other thing that is annoying for speedruns is because swords can hit multiple enemies, you can kill 2 glowing bugs for the light sword, and the sword can only hold 1 charge.
Do you think that they should just hard code it so that the sword can only hit 1 bug at a time?
Either that or let the sword hold 2 glowing charges. Right?
Nice.
It's just annoying, isn't it?
It's
just
really annoying.
Yeah.
Like
it's inconvenient for a casual player because you have to push around. For a speedrun, it's like, okay, I'm resetting because of that.
Cool.
Scott, when you said that you don't think they tested the patch, and you pointed that specific one, I sort of think that with like every single patch, because with what I said at the start, where I said like the game's just consistently got worse and worse and worse. That's because on launch everything felt really smooth. The game wouldn't crash. Like it wasn't that buggy. And then with every single patch that they bring out, it seems it just got more and more buggy. Things would break. It would crash a lot more, and it was almost like those weren't tested either because it was like it was obviously worse. So yeah, just test what you're putting out. It's like because it feels like they're not.
The Ether Shroud bug.
Go ahead.
The Ether Shroud bug in co-op generally makes me not want to speedrun the map in co-op. Yeah. Like I do not want to touch it at all, and I am doubtful currently if they will ever even acknowledge or fix that.
Right. I think they will fix it, but yeah, okay. So stability is paramount, clearly. Kingman, you were going to say something, and Matt can go.
I actually forgot what I was going to say. I was so confident.
Okay,
we all just said something at the same time. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I'll go then. I think for me, just like speedrun recognition is just it's just so key. Like I think getting in this patch was great, and like the work that we've done over the last like 4-6 years really in this community, like it's really come to this point where hey, they're actually recognizing us, and we're here. And I think like continuing that into the next couple titles and the end of this BO6 season, I think that's something that I would love to see, whether it's spotlighting us more, whether someone beats a record after it's being held for a couple weeks or something. That would be really cool, and be like, hey, like there's this part of the community that's really fun, you guys should go watch it, and like that's just again free farming and free marketing for them essentially.
I always feel like
what Destiny does, but
well, go ahead. Explain that a little more, Matt.
Or with the twabs, twids now, or whatever they're called. Like they've changed it so many times. But every week they put out a thing and they talk about community or just what's happening with the game and blah, blah, blah. But then they'll also highlight things that happened in the community. Like just someone made a really creative video. Someone did a low man in a raid, or sometimes they're a little iffy on the low mans and the speedruns, but they recognize community achievement stuff often. And like, at least I don't know if they do it anymore, but like every Friday they would just take a random content creator and be like, hey, here's this person, and just give them a full spotlight. And
I think it's great.
I think a lot of games do
like
that. I think
Yeah.
COD's missing that, to be honest. Like I know Overwatch did that for a long time. I dare say Fortnite was doing that as well, but yeah, I think COD misses that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that it's something that COD is I think uniquely bad at, is maybe the way I would sort of position it, because I think they've had weird instances where they've kind of tried to do little things like that in the past, but they just either mess it up in a big way when they do it, or they're just so infrequent that it doesn't feel like they ever do.
Right.
Or
like,
the creator messes up or causes drama.
well,
in some
yeah,
way too.
I mean, and maybe that's just sort of the nature of Call of Duty creators, perhaps, I don't know. But like an example I can think of that was like a great example in my view, but it's sad that it's sort of a one-off, is the way they revealed DLC 5 with when Jason Blundell went to JC's house. That was such a wonderful, silly, goofy community moment. And the sad thing about that is that I know for a fact that wasn't like an Activision executive's idea. That was Jason Blundell being a weirdo, and like a great weirdo in that moment. Like that was a good thing for him to be weird about. And I think that I don't know if there's anybody at Treyarch that has enough power to be like, I am going to be weird about this and make this happen now, because those Treyarch people are so subservient to what else is happening above them at Activision, and they are now subservient to what's happening above them at Microsoft. And so I worry that there's some politics and bureaucracy that's kind of going to get in the way of some of those sorts of things, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be asking for it, because it's a no-brainer. And I think that the way that they community build and the way that they've treated the community over the years has so much room for improvement, but we've almost all sort of written it off internally because we're like, well, it's Activision, like they suck. But
I literally found JC through that as well, by the way. It's like it works, you know what I mean? Like, you do find new people to watch and things like that, new people in the community through these things. So, just through me, it's proven to work. Right. So I think it would be good. I think that would be really good if they could do it.
Yeah. And we've lost that since Jason's left. And like the only person that I would think would do it would be Kevin. But, he hasn't really done that. The only thing he's really done is like the controlled COD pod things, and like I feel like I would love him to do like, come to us, maybe come on this pod or something else. Like that would be great.
Come, Kevin, come to the
Kevin. Come to this side, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Come to the round table. I mean, here's a question for you guys, because I've been thinking about this recently, not for any particular reason. I've just been sort of mulling it over. If I got invited to go on the COD pod, should I actually say yes or should I decline? Because from my perspective, on the one hand, it's Call of Duty, it's promotion, woo, like great. But I have made it very clear that I can go without Call of Duty promotion for the last several years because I've been blacklisted for nearly a decade. So like I can kind of live my life without suckling at Activision's behest. So I don't need to worry about that so much. But on the flip side, I think if I do go on the COD pod at some point, if they did ever invite me on, which there is no plan to do, I'm not leaking something here. I think that what that would cause is it would mean that people would be like, oh, now Milo's a shill because the COD pod feels so inorganic. Like there is no room for you to be real on the COD pod. So why would I go somewhere where I can't be real? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a lose-lose from your perspective. No matter what you choose, someone's gonna like. You're either a shill or you're just anti everything. It's like there's no between here.
It's whether or not you think you can give a positive impact to the community by going on it, or if you can make a bigger impact by just doing what you're doing now, making videos on issues in the game and things like that, because that reaches such a wide audience. I dare say it probably reaches a wider audience than, say, like the COD Pod would.
I
Just
think
based on
probably,
like it probably
does,
would.
Yeah.
So obviously that's just up to you whether you think where can you make the best impact. Because I
So I
assume
guess-
that's what you want. You want the game to be as good as it can. You want,
then we all win. So I guess then the question then would be like, if you guys were each offered the opportunity to go on the pod, what do you think would be the most valuable thing to drive into the devs' heads to get progress on? If you had an option to ask one question or to just like lay out an idea or something, is there anything that comes to mind for any of you?
I just want to, like, honestly, I just want to leave us alone in a way of like, when like that sounds wrong. Like it sounds wrong. It's not what I mean. But like when maps come out, we have this playground of like a new Easter egg that we're gonna do and optimize, find different routes for. We might find glitches and skips and all of it. And then as soon as we find it all, they just go, no, you're not doing that. We're changing everything. And it's like, can you just let us do our thing? And just, after a bit, maybe then we can start deciding like, okay, this might be a bit unhealthy. This is quite good. Say like, this skip's quite good. We're going to leave this in the game, but this one's way too OP and not very healthy. It's not very good. We'll get rid of that one. I just want to leave us alone for a bit. Like,
let's just zoom into that just real quick. Should they I feel like what you're asking for there actually is for them to have a better understanding of what is and isn't an actual problem in the game.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what that maybe would come from is some kind of better interface between the speedrunning community and the devs, whoever is sort of working on a given part of the
definitely,
time.
because they obviously know like what speedrunning is. I mean, today's proved that, right? Because they've, literally recognized us in a blog. But even before that, we obviously know that they know what we're doing. I know that they watch us and things like that, because where would they get the fixes for the skips? It's through us, you know what I mean? So yeah, I just want them to just sort of realize what's actually a problem in the game instead of just going, well, that's unintentional, that can't be in the game, let's get rid of that, even though it's not actually a problem and it might make the game for some people a lot better. Because at the end of the day, the more people playing the game is good. That's better for them. And I think Zombies is great for people to just play the game how they want. And I think modern COD Zombies is really good for that. You can play the game however you want. And I don't think it's good to alienate that, whether it's playing high rounds in certain ways, whether it's speedrunning, whether it's just doing Easter eggs normally, whether it's just playing casually with your friends. I don't think it's good to alienate communities, which is kind of what I feel like has been happening with us.
Yeah, fair. So this is a good step today.
Yeah.
Long may that continue. How about the rest of you guys? Anything, if you had a soapbox moment on the COD pod, what would you yap about? Any ideas?
I have
yeah, go for it.
I think regardless of what they decide to fix, either when they launch a new map or like the patch before they launch a new map, they shouldn't change skips from that point forward. It's like a new map is out, enjoy the old ones, this is how they are.
Okay. So
fair.
Once Citadel released December 6th, Terminus and Liberty should be immune to fixes for skips specifically from that point forth.
That was the
once
worst
Citadel
feeling for
released, once Citadel was released, they fixed Terminus, and then it's like currently no one is going to play Terminus because Citadel just released.
Yeah.
So the boards are completely empty, and almost no one is playing it.
Me personally, I have not touched Terminus at all since Citadel released. Like, I have no
you
reason
would have
to.
done had they not made those changes, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
if they
I
didn't
was
make
so
them, I would
excited to
still
go
be on the
back.
map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was so
I
excited
went
to go back
for
and play
3 days, and then they did the shock charge, and then I stopped.
Right.
No, seriously, it's because of what Kingman was saying before with how close the times were. I was so excited to go back and continue that, and I wanted to beat it, and it's like I was saying, it left such a sour taste because Citadel came out. I'm like, I'll play this for a bit. Then I've got Terminus to go back to as well, and people really like Terminus. And then they kind of just ruined it, and I have nothing to play for anymore because it's kind of like getting WR's fine, you know, getting world records really cool, but I want a time and I want competition as well. My competition's gone because no one's playing the map. It doesn't really mean anything if you beat no one, you know.
So they need to think about the fact that they're just basically they are killing the scene if they make those really late patches and they just sort of erode speedrunner trust in the map itself.
I think it was really damaging. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it goes hand in hand with like understanding what is actually important. Because obviously, once a new map comes out, they should still fix stuff that actually is breaking the map.
Yeah. So on that note, just while we're on it, because I noticed it in our notes here, there are a few things on Terminus right now that are still problems. They've been in the game since launch, and they still happen, and they can happen to just random players. And I know that this is the case because it's happened to me, and I'm not a speedrunner as of the end of October 2024. My career ended. I retired. Yeah, exactly. So an example of this is if you kill Ava too fast in the lab.
It's actually Anya.
Anya Tanofsky.
They need to write a better story so I remember the character names. It's their fault, not mine, definitely, 100%.
Just call her multiphasic injector. It's fine.
That's correct, exactly. So when you open the lab up, if you kill multiphasic injector too soon, it completely soft locks the briefcase step. You can't open the briefcase. And I've had that happen to me in a game. And I was like, I have to just restart the match now. Like, that sucks. There's similar extensive stuff on Citadel where there's loads of bugs that still affect that map. But the fact that that's still on Terminus is a really big problem. I believe there might be some other soft locks on Terminus as well.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys were saying something to do with black screen.
Oh yeah, so I can explain two. One of them's to do with the lockdown skip, because the way that the lockdown skip worked was you would throw a shock charge on the hatch and you would shock bugs and then it would just open. I don't know why, it just did.
Yeah.
But if you hit a parasite with the shock charge directly, the hatch wouldn't open and nothing would spawn, so you were just stuck in there and you couldn't end the lockdown. So that was one. And then another one is whenever you go into a black screen, whether that's going into the boss fight or going in to put the code for the Beam Smasher code, you could just get stuck in a black screen and you just can't play the game anymore and you'll just die. Which is a bit of an issue, because that is quite literally game breaking and can happen to anyone. So,
those should still be fixed. To be absolutely clear, we're not saying like lock the map of all changes once a new map comes out. If the changes are like fixing the Easter egg being broken, then those are valid. But otherwise,
it's realizing what's actually a problem, isn't it?
Like,
because
it's the most niche thing.
Realistically, me saving a boat trip back to the big ship to get a wire isn't game breaking. You know what I mean? Me dying because I'm stuck in a black screen and I can't play the game is game breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact we can't put the wire on the boat drives me insane. It drives me crazy.
Why can't you just carry it on there?
It's funny because you can get other items to land on the boat and drive them around, but you just can't get the canister.
I bet it interacts weird with it, and they just made it so you couldn't do it.
Yeah. Maybe it's just a weird stability thing. Yeah. Like, you put it on and it just like kills your FPS or something.
I could see it like crashing the game if you did it or something.
Maybe it makes the boat fly again.
Boat flying 2.0.
Shining, shimmering, splendid.
You remember that? You fly on the boat.
That was one where I was like, I wish that lasted a little longer.
It was just fun. It's goofy.
So across all of those things, I know that we've got a whole load of stuff in the doc that we were sort of compiling before we started chatting here. Is there anything on the doc that we've missed? I'm just sort of checking.
I think a lot of the stuff just like kind of just general game bad. What are we doing here stuff?
Yeah, a lot of it is really like the focus we feel is completely wrong and out of touch because like. They're targeting things like speedrun skips instead of like genuine issues in the game, not just in zombies speedrunning, but in zombies and COD as a whole, where like you say,
like things that affect normal play and speedrunning.
Yeah, like you say, it's like, or like rank play is filled with loads of cheaters. The game crashes loads of glitches and softlocks. And then obviously you've got all the bundles and stuff that, while all this is happening, everyone's like, guys, come on,
Yeah. Yeah, it feels distasteful to be like, well, we're suffering with loads of bugs in Citadel right now, but pay me more, by the way. Just give me some more money. Just
that's
give me a bit
isn't
more.
it? It's sort of like when all these issues exist and they sort of come at us, we're just sort of there like, what do we do? You know what I mean? We're like, why are you coming at us?
Yeah, also for everyone watching, just a little fun fact with the Squid Game event. Every bundle, every piece of item you can purchase in the Squid Game event costs $90, which is more than the actual game that you're playing.
I feel that's gone up now because they released another one, didn't they?
It did?
Yeah, they released another one.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
maybe more than the Vault Edition.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, and I think that the key thing on that side of things, which I think is problematic, is not that just at base level they just cost a lot of money. I think ultimately if there's tons of skins, then whatever, there's tons of skins.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that they are not earnable. I think it would be amazing if let's say I complete an Easter egg, give me 10 COD points. Don't give me 100. Don't give me 1,000. Give me just 10. You do something like that, even for a week or something. Just make it a limited time thing. Zombies extravaganza, double XP, double gobbles, 20 COD points per Easter egg completion. The zombies player numbers would be so insane. And without any path to earn a lot of that stuff, that's why it feels so distasteful, because it feels like you're being milked for content that could otherwise have been the free content as part of the live service of the game that you already paid $80 for or whatever at the start of the year.
Yeah, and one thing to add on what you said, Milo, what Destiny does with weekly resets, the loot pool resets. So if with COD points, your first completion of the week would be maybe 100 or 50, whatever it is, and then it'll go to 10. Yeah. And then every week it'll reset to that same number. And then you just keep complete as many times as you want.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, it also reminds me of
Fortnite with some of the PvE fort.
Yeah.
There's just no way that ever happens with Activision, though.
No.
There's just no way.
Because,
They already lowered the amount of battle pass COD points to go from 14 to 11.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
and in the perfect world, I'll do that.
In TF2, that's how it works as well. Or CS, same thing. When you're earning, you're getting drops, right? You'll get drops. There'll be a reset. You'll get more drops after reset, and then it will tail off, exponentially decreases, and then reset happens, you get drops again. But if you did that in that model was there in TF2 and CS and blah 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 for a reason. It's there in games like Destiny for a reason. I feel like COD could gain so much goodwill by giving out what would actually functionally be very, very little, but it would just at least feel like you weren't being messed about by the game as much as we are right now. And I think it would build a lot of goodwill. So I that's something that I would like to see too from the sort of the business development department.
And it would still take hours to grind as well.
Well, speedrun COD points is what we'll do. That's what it sounds like.
Liberty follows everyone 24/7.
Yeah. Even if it was once a map comes out, let's say for the next 4 weeks, once a week or something, you can earn, let's say it's 100 COD points or 50 COD points, and then your fifth completion of the map, you get 500 or something like that. Do it with COD points or do it with just a skin or whatever it might be. But incentivizing people to keep playing, I think that would be the thing that if I was going to go on the COD pod, I would say find an incentive to keep people playing the game, because the devs sink so much love and care into building these maps. Why are they designed to play once and then not touch again? Like the quest specifically, that doesn't make sense. They've got this massive progression system for elsewhere in the game. Why am I getting a blank stare when I say, what if we did an Easter egg twice? That should not be happening. The other thing that I would say, which is not really in Treyarch's hands so much as it's in Activision's hands and Microsoft's hands, is the voice actor situation. I want them to sign the interim agreement with SAG-AFTRA.
It needs to happen.
It just does need to. I think that I will look back on Black Ops 6, not as the game that did amazing things for the Cold War formula, iterating on that and making it better. I will not look back on it for the game that like properly kicked off speedrunners. When all is said and done, as things stand right now, I will probably look back on this game as the day that we lost Samantha. And Julie Nathanson no longer playing that character, it is just tragic to me. And I don't think you can sort of ignore that. I don't think you can sort of push it to the side.
It feels wrong.
You can't.
It sounds wrong.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that would be my personal ask to Treyarch there, is to like put some pressure on your bosses to get that done.
I would do that as well though. Like even just aside from all that, I'd be like, because it's just not. It's not a good look, is it? It's such a bad look. I feel like.
Yeah, they're throwing every business ethical decision out the window to. It dives into the whole AI situation of calling cards, art, whatever. It all dives into that. Just they're throwing ethics out the window to make as much money as they possibly can. Which I get, it's a business, but at least have some ethics to go with it.
Also, I feel bad for the actual like developers of zombies because it's not them, is it? It's not them.
Yeah.
And to me, I've moaned a lot. I've said this and that. You know, I've got issues with the game, but at the end of the day, it's a really good game, and it launched amazingly because it is really fun. And I just want it to stay that way and keep being fun. And we just have frustrations. I just want it to be good, because it's so good. It's so fun. I've been loving BO6, but
like this is the first time since I think BO3, BO2 maybe. As far as I can remember, where community consensus is like universally, this game it's pretty good. Like
even the
I
people
still haven't
on
played another COD
launch,
yet.
yeah, even the people on launch who were like, "This game sucks." That maybe lasted for like 2 days before everyone was like, "Yeah, it's actually pretty good."
It's like the whole COD cycle image, like that JPEG we all know. It's like here, like new game, trash. Like right now we're kind of at that point, but I think it's a little more justifiable right now. And then it's all way back around.
It's different reasons, isn't it?
Right now it's I think. It sounds like copious, I think, but it's not, I think it's a little different this time around because like the game's actually good. Like it's genuinely a good game.
I thought there were moments at launch with how community reception was going where I was like, if we only go up from here, if we don't have like a big downward thing, which is sadly what we've had.
If we don't have now,
we don't have
basically,
now.
if the future doesn't happen, I guess. But like, if we just build on this, if DLC 1 is like DE level, it slaps, because that was the sort of potential feeling beforehand, was like, well, they've got the DE tone with that one promotional picture, so maybe. But I was like, if they do that, if they nail DLC 1, I think that there is going to be a meaningful number of people, like maybe 20% of current Zombies fans, who would think that this is the best Zombies of all time, like over BO3. I thought that was really, really on the cards. As it stands, I think that kind of has been crushed a little bit by a lot of the post-launch drama that's happened, by the voice actor stuff. Like, how could I rate it above BO3 when the voice actor thing is happening? Like, it feels like ethically, like there's a barrier there to me being able to do that. But if they can get it back on track, which today is the first step of, hopefully, then maybe we can come back to this conversation in a few months' time, and that might actually be on the table again at some point. Because I think that, again, it's got really good bones. It just remains to be seen how they treat it as live service. So
we don't even have a full catalog of maps yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the point is, there's so much potential. Like, and it really could be that good, and you'll only really be able to compare them completely when BO6 is sort of done, when you have Black Ops 6 as a whole. And then you can start making those comparisons, where personally I think BO4 is the best Zombies, but that's just me.
This is kind of like looking forward to a lot of
BO4 enjoyers here.
Yeah.
Do we?
Hey,
outside BO4.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite Zombies.
It's good. All right, it's aged beautifully for me.
Okay. On that note, then let me ask you a question. We'll do this to round out here. I'm gonna go one by one. We'll reverse the order, except I feel like last time I picked on Matt and then no one else went. So we'll start with you this time, Mac. I want to ask, what do you think is the greatest speedrun of all time, and why? Like, is there a thing that you can call out in whichever map you think has the best speedrun? Just because I want this to kind of be an interesting thing for Treyarch to chew over themselves. I think they think a lot about how they design their Easter eggs for the general player base. I don't know if they think about designing maps to be speedrun. So I'm just curious if we can call out some really cool things to get their ideas kind of flowing for how they might implement cool stuff in the future. So favorite speedrun of all time, not necessarily for you to do, but just the thing that you think is the best speedrun, and what is it that makes it so juicy?
Yeah, I'm still gonna be biased here. I still think the Origins is the best speedrun, and I think the best part for me is tank skips, because it's all on the player. It is purely like how do you use your Boomhilda correctly to do all the tank skips correctly, and I think like it's the one part of the egg where it's like your run you can definitely mess up the run here, be it by yourself, and the rest of the runs you can do it for the most part relatively not bad, but that's the one part where it's like it's kind of makes or breaks your run.
And it's really skill based, right?
It's 100% skill based. There's no RNG with it. It's all on the player on how they do it, and that's why I enjoy those parts of the run where it's like on any map really where it's just purely like skill based. And I think that for me, I'm very biased obviously, but that's for me my favorite part.
Okay, and just to zoom in to make sure that the devs listening, because honestly, Origins came out a long time ago, so some of them might not be familiar. Just give me 30 seconds of how that works.
Yeah, so once you come out of the fire tunnel, you basically Boomhilda up into this little part where the first
Boomhilda is the pack-a-punched pistol.
Pack-a-punch pistol, yes, where you you basically put yourself in this little corner, coming up to the first lightning part in spawn, and then you boost up again, and then you go up into the little staircase area where you're supposed to come down, but you go up it to basically wipe away the death barrier that's there. And then once you go grab the lightning part, you go all the way back to generator 4, and then you jump over the the 2-story tank path basically. The sandbags, where there's the sandbags, you jump over those, and then you call the tank to come from spawn back to church. And while you're doing that, you boost up to the third lightning part, you grab that, and then you do all the wind orbs for the wind upgrade. And then you kind of just go back to the middle, and then get on the tank itself, and get the middle lightning part, and then you go and build it, and it's great, and I love it.
So what I'm hearing, because I want to translate from your speedrunner brain to dev brain.
There was a lot there.
What I'm hearing though is that essentially what makes this juicy for you is the just at default, the Boomhilda itself, allowing yourself to boost with it, and that's you have to go backwards, right? Or am I mistaken about that?
Yeah, it's a backwards boost.
Yeah, so you're shooting it, it gives you knockback, it kicks you back, and that recoil means that you get a speed boost, and so you can just continuously fire it, you go backwards. So that's where you're getting your boost. And what you love about this is that it's a combination of you've already got quite a tedious Easter egg. Right, overall, there's a lot of stuff you've got to do, but you're able to basically optimize different things at different times. So it's not forcing you to be in a specific linear path, but it's a branching path that you have agency over. And you can then use the boosts to find new shortcuts between some of that tediousness, skip some of that stuff out, and just be more effective and use some cool tricks like getting rid of a death barrier, which sounds like something that the devs would never intend for you to do, but it's by virtue of the inclusion of this really interesting boosting mechanic that is possible. Is that a fair sort of analysis?
That's a good way of translating it from speedrun to casual.
Okay, who wants to go next then? So we've got bring back Boomhilda in the Origins remake in DLC 2. You'll make this man's whole life. Let's go Kingman next. What do you think?
Oh god. Well, I think it's not at least for my answer here, just more discussion, more whatever.
Sure.
I'm gonna get flamed for this. Blood of the Dead. I love that speedrun so much. I know these guys love it too, but I know casuals absolutely despise it. I think just get rid of speedrun tricks, whatever. Just it's a very skill-based Easter egg. There's RNG, sure, but I think from start to finish, it's one of the most skill-based Easter eggs. It's already a very hard map as it is. Barely anyone's completed the Easter egg, And it's a long speedrun too. Like excluding the 5-minute cutscene, you're probably playing for like 35, 40 minutes straight without like any pause.
Okay,
so
so
that's 44.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let me zoom into that a little bit then. What is it that makes it hard in your eyes? And specifically here, I know the map is difficult, and I know that like random noobs will die on round 5. Like it's one of those maps, right? But what is it that you are seeing as potential expressions of skill in the map? Like how do you excel playing Blood?
From like start to finish, you finish like around 18 to 19 in BO4, which is already a relatively difficult game, right? And then there's a ton of different things. You have filling dogs, you have to keep count of things, you have to optimize your sword usage, like the speed boost or whatever. You gotta play rounds, there's 40 spawns of birds you have to look for. Kind of there's a trick where like you can use your shield up at the gondola where you can actually see the bird's trail and get a general idea of where it is.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then you have to like search that out and then end the round, do that a couple times. And that's the second and third bird. The first and fourth one have set spawns. So like the first one you have 3 spawns, and the fourth one will have probably like 10 spawns.
Yeah, 10 or 11, I think.
Yeah, 10 or 11. Yeah. Well, whatever the number is, but there's a lot of like mental things you have to keep in mind, like spawns, time end potential or round end challenges. Depending on like the challenge order you get, you might have to flip around. You might have to like hold around, hold someone else. Okay. Also, the warden. Yeah.
Shield charges are also huge.
Yeah.
Shield. Yeah. Like
getting shield charges in optimal places, keeping your shield alive, by the way, because your shield is more important than you. So you're like staying alive is genuinely hard because you're making sure you get hit over your shield in most situations because you want your shield health, you want it to live. So that's also another hard thing.
Yeah. There's a ton of different things I really can think of, like the shock boxes, the charges, you hold the warden for the drop cycle potentially. There's so many different like niche things in the run. It's very good just like understanding like not even just Blood, like different maps. It's very good to like increase your mental capacity for a map because like if you handle Blood of the Dead mentally,
Blood of the Dead Easter eggs, it sounds like it's just brain training for you, and you really like being stretched in that way. Yeah. So where I'm sort of seeing potentially some crossover here is movement tricks. If you're using movement tricks with the sword, right? Because you can pop the sword to get a speed boost, right? And you can use that. Am I right about that? Yeah. So that there's some crossover with Origins there as well. We like movement tricks, so that's a consistent theme. And then also, I think that Origins is a fairly complex map with a lot of different things going on all at once. Granted, Origins has had so much optimization over the years that I think there's probably a little bit less to be constantly thinking about on the fly when you're playing it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's fair.
Like,
yeah.
Okay. Whereas Blood, it sounds like it's almost like unsolved, so to speak, in that each time you play it, you might actually go a slightly different way because you're going to adapt based on how it kind of pans out in front of you.
It's dynamic.
Doing the challenges kind of makes you just adapt as you go.
Right.
Knowing how to play Blood will like better than like the next player will save you time because it's like you say, it's all around your sword and drop cycles and getting full powers, getting shocks in optimal places, like playing around your challenge order and things like that. And again, I'll preface it's about using your sword as efficiently as possible, getting it back, things like that. And that's what it can really separate players, honestly. It can get really hard because you're thinking about so much. Genuinely, like you really got to think, and it can one wrong decision can genuinely just mess it up for like the next challenge. Like it's tough.
As a noob speedrunner, I can't deal with that. I can't deal with like 2 things, let alone anything more. Like I very much when I was learning Liberty and Terminus speedruns, I would basically look at Record Holder and a couple of other, like whoever it was at a given time, a couple of other people on the leaderboards. And I'd basically be like, okay, there's more or less a flow here that I can do. And it just became about trying to execute that flow over and over again, which was really fun. I really did enjoy it. But when I then saw like people still trying to optimize Citadel when it came out and everyone doing different stuff and figuring stuff out on the fly, or Kingman, I watched a fair few of your runs and you I could see were using that Blood of the Dead brain, where you were like, you were juggling stuff, realizing you needed to do something, somehow multitasking 3 things at once. And I was like, Jesus Christ. But I can see that being really fun if you got good at it. Whereas I'm obviously very newbie at it. So for me, it's just like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. But for you to jump into Blood and be able to express yourself in that sandbox, that sounds great. So I can see why you would pick it. Yeah. So skill expression through that, complexity, shared commonality with Origins, and the movement stuff. Let's go to you now, Smartguy. What is your favorite speedrun and why?
I feel like it's a tie between 3.
Okay, that's fine.
I would love to say Ancient Evil would be the top for me, but the Trials RNG completely ruins it.
That's
all. That one gets away.
Okay.
What? I love Ancient Evil. Okay.
Okay. Look, outside the challenges, I will say that's a very good speedrun. Yeah.
Outside of the trial RNG, it's the worst thing ever. So the 2 that I would put at the top for me, Dead of the Night. I would put that up there.
Yes. Oh my god.
It's another complexity. You're balancing things back and forth 24/7. I want to go back to it here soon because I've not touched it.
You have it's so good.
It's so different since last time I've touched it. So, but then outside of Treyarch, I would also put up Frozen Dawn from World War II.
Okay, why? What? How?
It's kind of just the same thing. Honestly, it's kind of like Citadel, but from Sledgehammer.
Okay.
If you is how I would explain it. And then even the boss, you just completely kind of skip with the scythe. But
you want to know something crazy?
It's just the complexity of it. So
you want to know something really, really crazy?
Oh no, what you do?
I've never played that map.
Yeah, no.
Neither have I.
Frozen Dawn?
I've never played World War II.
I played it 1 hour.
Like downloaded it. I just stopped that game. I was just like, I'll see you next time. I'll see you next time.
I did the same.
The Easter eggs are great. The boss fights are terrible.
Oh, okay.
They have the worst boss fights, I think, out of any of the CODs.
Wow.
But in terms of like Easter eggs, love.
Yeah.
Absolutely
okay,
love.
Let's just double click real quick. So what is it briefly that you like about all 3 of those maps? Dead of the Night, Ancient Evil, and I mean, it can be different things for each one, but like, what is it that makes the speedrun good? Is it just complexity for all of them pretty much?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, there are things that you do in them for speed. Because like on Frozen Dawn, you have a shield as one of the 4 melee weapons that you use for your wonder weapons, and you can use it for speeding and running around a bit. Okay. But it's just like being in the right place at the right time, and you're working on this while you're working on this at the same time for Frozen Dawn, and then the same thing of Dead of the Night. It's, I don't know. It's just, to me, that's what makes a good map.
Okay.
Just doing all that.
So it's becoming a theme here that basically multitasking and juggling is just really fun in a speedrun, it sounds like.
Whatever makes you constantly have to be thinking. If you ever get to a point in the speedrun where you're just sitting there and doing nothing, even just mentally, that's when I check out and I'm just like, nope, I'm done here.
That's the whole thing with the shock charge skip. It's like you just save a minute.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying,
and if you don't have the skip, you are just checked out. You're just like, I'll shoot my controller. Like, yeah. Okay.
Which is basically what the Citadel boss fight with the drill was.
Yeah.
Right. Fair. Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, on that note, Scrappy, what's your favorite?
So for me, and I know Jack will agree with this, a lot of the fun, especially when a new map comes out, is routing it.
Yeah.
And maps that are complex generally have more you can route and like more things you can try, do different things differently. For me, Dead of the Night is my favorite. I think it's almost perfect for routing.
It's really good. Yeah.
I think if you could light the trap with the folly when it was upgraded only the first time, I think it would make routing a lot more complex. But aside from that, there's so much you can do on that map. As like the same time as doing other things, and even like all the lockdowns, there's so much knowledge to just do them fast that 99% of people don't know. And even the speedrunners, like before like 2 years ago, we didn't know them. Like
Right.
most people just, I mean, you would like kill fast, right? But you didn't know like what progressed to lockdown, and we know that now.
It's
and
really
it's really
skill-based.
Give an
intricate.
example of like
So like the most of the lockdowns that have vampires, it's like you need to kill all of the vampires or some of the vampires to progress to lockdown. And of course, it's not just vampires, so you might just try to kill whatever you see.
yeah.
Yeah, and then like the vampires have specific spawns in some certain lockdowns that are the same. So you can make like a route to always do the lockdown the fastest.
Right. Okay. So it's like a tech based on how it's hard coded that can kind of be found gradually over time. And it's a combination of choosing when to do that in a sandbox that doesn't really say like this has to be a linear experience, but instead it sort of says like you've got 15 things to do, just go do them. You can do this, or you can do this. Like that is all interchangeable. So I guess that's something where for Terminus for you, does that mean that you're
that's why I don't like Terminus as much. And why I really like Citadel, because obviously like when Citadel came out, like I didn't really like what other people were doing. I just like thought what would be good. And I was smart guy Matt. You also do that too, right? Like you like to do your own thing a lot.
Yeah. It's like I see Kingman and everyone doing this, but I like doing it this way. So I'm gonna just keep doing it my way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's slower, but if you can get really perfect at doing it your way, sometimes it can end up matching
competitive.
Maybe a worse RNG situation as someone else, and it just balances.
It is really cool seeing different routes compete to see what's actually better.
Yeah.
Citadel was really good for that on release. I got a run on release of Citadel, and then the next day, instead of trying to beat the run with the same route, I was like, I was gonna do something completely different now. I completely changed it all because it was just fun.
I feel like Terminus was going that route like at first, but then Matt discovered the Mustang and Sally's.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, there goes all that.
True.
Was it literally just like now it's all the same because you need to build it around the Sally's, basically? Is that like kind of how?
Well, beforehand it was triple packing the Beam Smasher.
Need a lot of money,
so they were just having to dump all of their points into that. But now you have all the point freedom in the world.
Yeah.
So you can
kind of
okay.
Because
there was also at the beginning of Citadel, there was a little bit more focus on getting more Pack-a-Punch tiers. Right?
And so it's before finding a meta. If you don't have a meta for the boss, then it's just sort of go with like, I'm just going to triple back this weapon and hope for the best. And obviously Citadel's version was, literally Scrap sent me a video. He's like, of him using the drill on the boss, and I was like, oh my god, it's destroying him. The next run is like, we're using the drill now.
Okay, so
I think going to like higher rounds, for a speed run, that is like going around 20 is a lot of fun.
Makes it hard.
So like when I do Citadel now, like I'm on 20 or 21 in the boss a lot. And it's the same thing with Blood. You go to like 18, 19, 20.
So that's I guess basically taking all the other stuff that we talked about and then just basically saying, and also make it difficult.
But not 9, because almost all the steps on 9 you just have to like push around. That's boring.
Multiple
That's
rounds.
boring. So you can't start the Easter egg until like round 17.
So is the reason you're getting to the high rounds on, because I mean you can make the same argument for Citadel that like you just have to get to round 10, right? So maybe that's annoying. Is it that
I think 10 is low enough
beforehand? Oh, 10's low enough where it doesn't.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like a general setup in a game of zombies, I feel like, so that's fine. But then when you just progress in another 7 rounds to just be like, I've got to wait 3 rounds for the wood to burn, and then I need to ferment it with poo and some skull, and then I need to ferment it again.
Round 17 is the minimum, by the way, because you gotta wait like 3 rounds for someone else, and another few rounds for this. So like, 17 is the minimum when you
Yeah.
start down like probably around 12, I think.
Where like blood would be way worse if you couldn't do the monkey bomb trick.
Yeah.
Because that's the
Oh,
same.
yeah.
That's round
That would be
17
awful.
as well. But you just
Right.
skip it with the monkey bomb.
Okay. Interesting. So difficulty, but not arbitrary, pushing you to flip round when you're at high rounds.
Yeah.
But saying that you can't do something before round 5 is not deep because you're going to end up at round 5 regardless. So it's like that's kind of fine. Okay, so then Jack, what about your favorite map? Where do you sort of stand on?
I've got 2 because I agree with Blood. I'm a massive Blood fan. But the actual design of the general Easter egg is absolutely terrible. Like, it's awful. Like,
It is awful, yes.
The Blood Easter egg is so badly designed that I don't want that again. But the actual speedrun of it, because, like, the way it's designed is just terrible. Because finding a bird across the map, the map's big. Like, it's really big. And there's 41... 42, 40 bird locations.
It might be 42, but
I think it's
around
42.
40.
There's 42 bird locations around the map that you've got to do on multiple rounds. That it's designed that you're meant to go around the map with your shield and listen for the bird. It's only that we have an unintended trick in the game that we can sort of get an idea of where it is that makes it better and less insufferable.
Imagine you couldn't brute force the Morse code.
Yeah, some steps are just... I just don't think they're good. Like, the Morse code step is, like, annoying and complicated. And I don't mind steps like that, but when you start pairing that with other steps like the Simon Says, which is just really tedious and annoying, where you've got to go from one side of the map all the way to the other side of the map to a really long thing, then all the way back to the other side of the map and translate stuff, and I just don't think the design of Easter egg's good. And again, it's intended for you to start it on round 17. Which is ridiculous, because you will die every time.
This is really interesting. Like, before we get to the reason why you like the other elements of it, I think that's an interesting comment to pull out, because what I'm hearing is that there's certain things that for general zombies players, even outside of an Easter egg, is just like annoying to do. Like, if your friend dies on the other side of the map, it's a pain in the ass, right? It's why the gobblegums exist, to just like teleport to them in the first place. So things like that in an Easter egg, if you are going to force a player to run to the other side of the map, that's almost always just going to be annoying. Like, I don't think that there's ever a scenario where I'm like, oh, I loved that. Like, why would there be, right? So I guess just in terms of general Easter egg design philosophy commentary, that might be something that we could just sort of generally say, maybe that just shouldn't be something in their sandbox. But I also, just before you get on to talking about the speedrun, I want to ask, why do you think the bird spawn thing is annoying? And I'm gonna out myself as a Dead of the Night ignorer here. I don't think I've played Dead of the Night since we beat it first, maybe in the world, Matt. I think we were.
Well, that has its own whole situation. I don't know if
you count it, you count it. If you don't, you don't. But we certainly were playing the map day one. We could say that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've played it since.
We were the first on stream. We can say that.
Sure. Yeah,
The
exactly.
first to do it live.
And the Easter egg, if I recall correctly, and I might just not recall correctly, but aren't there like a whole load of symbol spawns like under tables and in weird places and stuff on the walls that you have to memorize?
Well, that's the thing. It's like some steps don't cater well to casual players, whereas they cater really well to sort of, I don't know, like even just speedrunners in general. Like
would you say the Dead of the Night symbols is bad for casuals, just like the birds are bad for casuals?
I think the bird's worse.
You think the bird's worse?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think the scratches are worse just because they're harder to see.
They are.
At least with the bird, there is a slight audio thing that you can do. I think
scratches could be done better.
Yeah.
But I think the concept of the bird is worse.
That's fair. Okay, yeah.
But
like one in 40 is just silly.
Both of them could be better for casuals. We're not saying that the Dead of the Night Easter egg for casuals is good when we're saying that the speedrun is good. Is that correct?
No, I kind of think the Dead of the Night egg is good. I think it's good. Yeah.
I think the Folly is like one of the best wonder weapons to use. So
yeah. I think the Atlas puzzle
fun for me.
Atlas puzzle is bad. Like, that is not good. But everything else I think is fine.
Okay, interesting. Because I just recall that being something that at the time there was a lot of commentary where people were basically saying, "This feels like homework, and I don't want to do homework in an Easter egg." Right. But yeah, it's just interesting that that's kind of come full circle now, and it's like, yeah, it's.
That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of the
better,
time,
but
like,
it's not too bad.
Maps and stuff that people don't like, people
really good
generally
speedruns.
like in speedruns. Like my favorite map, which doesn't mean it's my favorite speedrun, by the way, but my favorite map is Voyage. I'm like Stanley, and we're the two weirdos of the community. And I love the Easter eggs so much, and some of it, I love the planet step, which people hate for some reason. I don't get it. Like, it's my favorite step. So you know,
like, I think Rev's a really good speedrun, but oh my god, as a casual egg, it's terrible. But speedrun, it's fun.
Yeah, so. Did you want why I like Blood speedrun or my actual favorite speedrun? Because I would say that, but I don't want Blood's egg. So I have another answer.
Okay, let's go with the other answer. We've heard about Blood anyway, so let's go with the other one, the curveball.
Well, I don't know if mine's obvious. I love Shadows of Evil so much. Like,
okay,
no, it wasn't obvious at all. What gives it away?
There's so much tech in SOE. Like Scrap knows as much as me.
Yeah.
There's so much that like genuinely like no one else knows. That if you watch me play it, or say like watch Scrap play it or something, we'll be doing so much in some niche situations that you'll have no idea what we're doing, but it's important to the run. Whether that's I'm looking in certain spots at certain times, or I'm doing maths in my head to calculate different nuke times based on how many zombies are left in the round, or if I'm looking in certain ways to stop despawns, or if it's just insta-killing 2 Margwas at once, which is quite a hard skill to get off every time, which no one can get it every time because it's so hard. And the run itself is just, I don't know, it's so like exhilarating when you get a run. I don't know, like especially a good run, like you're locked in. I don't know, I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, is it so a part of the text that you're doing, is it because of like, is it beast mode type stuff, or is it
it
past
could be
beast
that
mode? It's like long past that stuff. Like what's
I mean, obviously the beast mode tech in SOE is quite famous, right? With all the tram skips, and even now, like
I'm gonna be honest.
No, do you not know?
I don't know
mate, we're jumping out of bounds to get the sword symbols and things like that in beast mode. Like running on the tram lines in some cases. Like,
oh wow.
We can grapple as a human. So like, you know how you grapple in the beast mode? We can do that as just a regular player and jump around the map like that.
Wow.
So that's cool tech. But I'm talking about the way that spawns work in SOE and the giant specifically, but it's not really useful in the giant, so it's focused on shadows, is very different to where you can manipulate where zombies spawn given certain checks are checked, basically.
Right. Okay.
So we can manipulate that like throughout the run, because it's basically a round speedrun. A lot of SOEs do this and then flip around, do this and flip around, you know, do a flag, flip around. So it's all about playing as optimally as possible with your round. And I love the tech that comes with that. It's so good.
And so you're forced to get through the round as fast as possible, but also because you're doing different steps, you're forced to move to different parts of the map. So it's like, okay, how do I flip the round the fastest in the waterfront? Or how do I do this the fastest while also killing this Margwa here? Or like, is it that sort of energy?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess then the rule that I guess I'm detecting from that is that you actually don't mind being forced to flip around. We talked a little bit about being forced to flip rounds in a map like Black Blood. There's ways for it to be interesting.
Yeah.
It's just that if it comes down to, I feel like I'm being forced to flip around and it's sort of lazy design and there's not a lot for me to think about while I'm doing it, then it's more frustrating maybe.
The example that was given was 9, where...
Or 9, sorry, not Blood, yeah.
Yeah, but it would be like 9 where the case would be you have to put a wooden stake above a fire, and then you literally just have to wait 3 rounds to pick it up.
Right.
And you're not doing you're literally not doing anything in that time pretty much. You're just waiting until it's done, you know?
Yeah. So if you're just playing the game, it's not enough. You need to be speedrunning the game.
No.
But yeah, I love that story. I mean, I don't know if that's bias. I think Scrap will agree with me in a way, because I know he loves SOE, but...
There's so much tech that we know that is not useful that is just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a it's a good lesson for Treyarch, I think, to sort of keep with them as they continue to design these maps over the course of the rest of this year, that having that kind of complexity in a map is like, I think it's quite cool to just give players random stuff to do. And it doesn't need to be necessarily even for the Easter egg, but if it's a system in the map that's just like a weird, goofy system, people like you guys are going to find ways to abuse it in really interesting ways. And even if it's small things, like, for example, using the boat in Terminus in smart ways so that you can jump out the window. I remember that. I think I was watching you, Kingman, the first time I saw someone dive out of a window or dive off the ledge onto the boat to go to the
you position the boat.
Yeah,
and
I was like,
dive on it.
That's so sick that you're using the sandbox in that way to achieve that very, very small 5-second time save. Or in Citadel, using the braziers where you can obviously get fire speed up, and then using that and just using it for a speed up and not even finishing the brazier that first time you do it or something, just using it to zoom around somewhere. Like, that stuff is just cool. And
I think C4ing the power-ups is really
that's
yeah.
Yeah.
That is. Are we all in agreement that should come back in every Zombies?
I just looked aside.
That has to be a standard now.
Yeah. The side X and BO6 are just really well made. They are really, really good.
I would be interested. I know that this is we're going long here, but this is good. On Citadel, I think that selection of side quests is abominable. I think that terrible.
It's lacking.
And I don't know if that's Terminus and Liberty had more because they were launch maps, or if it's because Citadel had a short dev time and that's why it's got less. Like, I don't know if it's that they have more or Citadel has less. Very curious where this next map is going to land in terms of that.
Yeah, but like, I feel like, with Terminus and Liberty, one of the biggest advertising or marketing points was these are the most side eggs we've ever had in any Zombies map. And then with Citadel, it's like, oh, we have the swords. So I'm curious what they're going to do with DLC 2, 3, and 4, and like what their big selling point is for each map. Yeah. Because I personally don't think that Origin's stupid.
Boom, Hilda.
It's coming back.
We are here.
Yeah. I find hard to believe that they're going to use side eggs on a DLC map as like their big selling point. So I think side eggs from here on in, they're going to be there, obviously. There's no way they're not going to be there, but they're not going to be as prevalent as they are in, like, say, Terminus or Liberty.
I mean, I just feel like the side eggs, even if it's fewer in number, I feel like the side eggs in Citadel, they just aren't interesting to me. Like, why are we using the cannon 100 times? That's just, I just feel like that's just dumb.
That's horrible.
It takes an hour to do that solo, by the way.
Yeah. And it's like, not only does it take an hour, but you get, a monkey bomb from it? Like,
2 monkey bombs. 2 monkey bombs.
And
the tower itself
is a monkey bomb itself. Yes.
For
There's
60
some
seconds.
cool ones. There's some cool ones though.
Yeah.
Like
I think the rat is cool, but the rewards, the rewards don't feel the same.
Was that Mac?
Like,
is the Rat King one fully solved? Because I know there's some people trying to figure out like another like portion of it.
I think
we don't know.
They said what they thought was the next step got patched, apparently.
Right, I saw that, yeah.
So they think it was just a bug for what they thought was maybe something.
Yeah, because you have the crown and everything, but it's like, what does the crown do? You know?
Yeah. I think it's cool, but they kind of dropped the ball on the rewards. Because in Liberty, you've got the falling zombies, which always gives you an ether tool and gives you like a bunch of other crap. And then Terminus has the boxes, which are, obviously not guaranteed because there's a ton of them. But if you open all of them, like, you're sure going to get something good. And then if you do
under the water,
yeah. And then if you do the rat, you might just only get like an ammo mod and a green gun and 1,000 points.
Yeah, then the rewards you get
might
for
not
one
get anything
rat,
else.
The reward you get for 1 rat is the same as you would with 10 rats. The only difference is the cosmetic crown you get on the 10th one.
Right.
So there's no incentive to get like.
To be clear, to make that like a little more accurate is the reward itself gets better with more rats, but you don't get more reward.
Yeah.
So you could get like a purple ether tool or a PAP 2 crystal, but you don't have. It doesn't seem like you have a better chance of getting both or something.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think the bartender one's good as well, by the way. Sorry, you
Yeah,
can go.
bartender's
That's
very
true.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess part of it comes down to like, why are these here? Are they here for just like to make you go, huh, that's funny? Or are they there to make you go, I need to do this to serve the gameplay some other way, right? And for me, it's purely because PhD is a crutch perk because of the GS45s that I like really care about doing that Easter egg. There's just so much stuff on Terminus where I'll consider doing it at a given time. Like I'll be like, oh, maybe I should actually do the jail cell thing for the free perk here. I'll just quickly like get through that. Or I don't know, maybe I'm feeling like sort of showing off to some friends or something, and I'm like, yeah, the fish Easter egg, why not? We'll cook some fish, and that has the goofy element to it. But there's enough of it in all areas that I'm like, it feels like there's always something goofy to do. Like the teleport back to the island with the beam smasher on Terminus. I love that. I think it's so good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think the boat race is really cool with friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, the boat race is so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's something that I'd like to see, because I think also for speedruns, it's really, really awesome when you guys use a part of a side quest to accelerate stuff. And I remember when I watched your run, Matt, you were using the rat egg in the spawn.
I love Steve.
Steve
Was that Steve's idea?
No, I
No,
named
Steve the rat.
Okay. So
I called him that since day one.
Okay, perfect. So Steve being something that you sort of flocked to every single time, I thought that was really, really cool. And I love seeing those things sort of included in speedruns, because it just feels like you're using every possible part of the sandbox together. But it feels like Citadel doesn't have quite enough of that to really hit for some reason.
I got harassed by my chat to feed the rats, by the way.
Yeah, you never fed them.
It used to be more optional.
No.
The strats have evolved to where points are less frequent. So you'll need the rat a lot more now.
Okay.
Y'all even use the monkey bomb now too, don't you?
Yeah, the monkey bomb is pretty good for and ending the round, or just like keeping the zombies away so they don't despawn when you talk to Craft.
Right.
Craft. It's Craft, right?
Yeah.
It's whatever you want it to be at this point. He's going.
It's Ava.
It's multi-phase projector.
Anya Tanofsky.
Yeah.
I know it's a little off topic, but like in Jack's runs, like he would take the cake but never look at the rat, but still place the cake.
Oh, that's evil, bro.
Yeah, I'm taking it for
He
myself.
would do that every time.
Myself.
He said, let them eat cake. And then when they said who, he said, me.
It's not even cake, it's cheese. You're giving it to rats. It's a wheel of cheese. Like,
well, one of the rats is eating pizza, so
That's
I guess
true.
there's cheese on the pizza, but
Yeah. Well, on that wonderful note of Steve eating his pizza, this has been a pleasure to have you guys on here today talking about some of these things that Treyarch are doing well or doing not so well. I think all of us are really optimistic about Black Ops 6 on the whole. I think that, like we've said, it's got really good bones. And today, that blog post with some positive pro speedrunner sentiment, I think has kind of breathed a bit of life into the speedrunning scene that was kind of under fire with some of these negative changes that have happened over the last few months. So that's really nice to see. It's really nice to see that positive step in the right direction. Long may that continue. Let's all cross our fingers and hope for the best. Any closing words from any of you, or should we wrap it there?
Thanks for having us. Round of applause. There we go.
I got nothing.
thanks for getting this together.
A lot of fun,
There you go. Well
No,
done.
this one's cool. This one's cool though. Like it's sort of like I feel like we've never really had a platform in a way. Like we have and we haven't. But to be able to speak and sort of talk about what we do in a live game where things are getting changed is pretty cool, and sort of express problems and issues or concerns. And even today, when we got that patch where we were recognized, and be like, you guys are a community as well. We want to make sure we're serving you and make sure that you have a way to play the game as well. So that was nice.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to there's some cool stuff that can happen with this game, so long as they don't patch the fun out of it. But it seems like they are starting to recognize that that's what they need to do. So
They got something genuinely very good going with this patch. Like, fingers crossed they keep it going. Knowing Activision's history, I'm skeptical, but this is a good start. So I'm glad that this is happening.
Yeah.
So everyone in the comment section, Drop me a comment and let me know if you want the round table to be reconvened after DLC 2 or whatever at some point. We can make that happen. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Drop a like if you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.